So yeah, I guess what do we should start off with? Just do we even want to bother with what everybody's been watching, or just kind of go right into the big ones? Because I mean we've got a lot of stuff that we could talk about, like that fucking Ryan Reynolds movie that looked like it was going to be good. I wound up
Which
being a
one?
fucking turd
Tree
on
Guy?
Netflix.
Oh,
No,
Red Notice?
yeah.
You
I
didn't
loved
like
Red
that?
Notice. I loved Red
I
Oh,
Notice.
loved Red Notice. I thought it was fantastic. I can't wait for the next one.
okay. Red Notice got good like 2/3 of the way in. Before that, I was like, this is a waste of two people that could be an incredibly great
See,
comedic duo.
I disagree for the sole purpose that I knew it was not going to be a good movie, and I accepted the fact that it was going to be entertaining. Like, and there's a difference, and that's okay. Like, I wasn't looking for an Oscar winner. I was just looking to have a good time, and I did. And then in between, every now and then, Gal Gadot showed up, and that makes everything better too.
But then
I
on the other side of that, the fucking the whatchamacallit, the one about thieves, the dude, the safecracker from
Dude, I fucking love that one.
that was
From
fucking
that was so good.
amazing.
Wait,
Like,
wait.
but that character was so fucking
Army
endearing.
of Thieves.
Yeah, that character was so fucking endearing. Like, I liked him so much.
The prequel to Army of the whatever it was. I really liked that. I liked them both.
Welcome to the All Pop No Culture podcast. I am your host this week, Pete. With me is Kevin
Hello.
and Andrew One.
Well, I guess my last name is A, so I'll be Andrew One.
Who has been on the show before. Recognize the sultry, dulcet sounds of his voice there.
Stop hitting.
And we have an
here.
Andrew number 2.
That's an unfortunate moniker.
Andrew 2, yes. You know, just for shits and giggles, Kevin, you and I should just go by Andrew as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
And then just the whole night it'll be like fucking Spies Like
Doctor?
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 And Doctor. Well, we miss anyone?
We're gonna call you Drew.
Drew, that
I
works.
like that.
Taking me back to my college days,
And Andrew 2, instead of calling you Andrew, we're gonna call you Andy.
high
I'm just
school.
going to do what I do in life and just not address anybody at all and assume you know who I'm talking to.
So we are a pop culture focused podcast, mainly talking about streaming movies and television. And it's been a little while since we've had what we figure we need to wrap up the year, maybe see what we thought of some of the best stuff. Plus, there's just some things that have come out recently that we need to discuss because they're right up our little pop culture alley here. So, who wants to kick it off? I'll tell you what, Drew. What have you been watching recently?
Believe it or not, I was hoping you wouldn't pick me because I haven't really had a chance to.
Okay, Kevin, what have you been
on
watching
things.
recently?
Well, other than our list of stuff, now that we're getting to the end of the year, I finished off my year doing a full watch of the Stargate shows.
You did finish it.
I did finish it. I've watched all 3 series, all 17 seasons of television. And man, I got to be honest, I really loved it. I struggled a little bit with Stargate Universe, which was the 3rd series they had. The way they filmed it and the way they did a few things, it felt a little like a Battlestar Galactica ripoff, and it didn't have the same tone that the first 2 series had. But by the time it was done, I was really disappointed that it only went 2 seasons. And that series of shows really suffered from being on the Sci-Fi Channel. I don't, you know how I feel about sci-fi, and they will just cancel any show that they're not producing because it doesn't make them enough money, and they don't really care what the ratings are on the show or anything. They've canceled at least 3 shows that were in their top 5 viewing numbers, and they don't care if it's not making money. They're like, we're done. So those series kind of got the shit end of the stick, but they were really good. And then in the recent weeks, other than all the Marvel stuff and getting caught up on all that, I've started to rewatch Psych on Amazon Prime.
Okay, Dulé Hill,
Which-
love him.
Dude, that show's fucking
I'll
fantastic.
get on board with that.
And James Roday. I think if you like Dulé Hill and you haven't seen him on Psych, I think you're missing a huge and impressive a piece of his repertoire.
That's
He
one of those
is,
shows where I watched a couple of episodes and then just never had time to go and get into it with everything else. It was like House was like that for me, which everybody says is a phenomenal show, and I watched a few
Love
episodes.
House.
Every
Love
episode
House.
I watched,
Yeah.
I've loved, but I've never just been able to commit to that show.
Yeah, Psych's it's just fun. It's not. It came out at the same time as The Mentalist, and they actually have jokes about that all the time because they're basically the same show, except for Psych is hilarious and The Mentalist has a dude that kind of looks like a douche novel. But the idea is the same. It's a guy that's pretending to be, a cop or help out the cops, but he just happens to be incredibly observant, right? But Psych takes it like to 11 in the ridiculous, and it's just a lot of fun. And I'm sure there's other shit that I've been watching that that isn't on my top 5 of 2021, but funny enough, the things that are on there are all things that I've watched kind of recently, so I
Right.
might save them for a little bit.
All right, that's good. The Stargate thing, I'm very impressed with that because I enjoyed that show when I've watched it, but that's another one that I just couldn't get into because I don't know, it never grabbed me the same way.
It's really weird to watch now too, because the first 8 seasons, I think it's the first full 8 seasons, 7 seasons maybe, are all in standard definition because they predate HD.
Yeah,
They predate HD, so you're never going to get them in HD. You're never going to see them in any other format. So when you watch them, you have the boxes on the side, and it's weird. It takes a little adjustment, but the characters in that show really draw you in. You get really connected to them, especially over 10 seasons. And what's crazy is that's when shows were still 24 episodes long.
Mhm.
yeah. Oof.
So it's a lot of television. Yeah. But it's good. Like if you fall in love with the characters, it's really good.
Good. All right. Maybe we'll I'll go back and.
No, you won't.
Yeah, I know I won't. He's right. I won't. I say that I'm not going to go anywhere near it. It's on. I'll put it on my list. Don't we all have
the
like
hardest
that
the
weird...
hardest thing about Stargate is that the rights keep bouncing around. Like supposedly MGM owns it, so it gets kicked off of streaming services like every few months. So you have to try and catch it and hope it doesn't get pulled from everywhere.
Nice.
Yeah,
That might be for a reason.
it's all about it's all about the monies. It's MGM owns it, and they're not technically affiliated with any one channel right now, so they're out there trying to get the money. At one point, it was on Netflix and Hulu, and then it was on Netflix and Prime. I think now it's only on Prime. So yeah,
That's Prime is weird to me because they've got some really cool original programming, and then they get some cool movies and TV shows, but there is just like all the shit that like Russia bought at the end of the Cold War, or that they like pirated that people learned how to speak English, just like these bizarre B movies and television shows and shit, especially from like the 70s that I have never even heard of. And I've heard of a lot of real weird random shit that like I'll reference and people are like, the fuck are you talking about? And but Amazon Prime is like the dumping ground for all of that. Like it was an 80s movie that like was some sort of sci-fi fantasy like epic thing that had the budget of a middle school play, then it's right there.
You mean like Velocipaster?
Velocipaster is the shit.
No,
Yeah, I
dude,
gotta
it
jump
is
in
not.
really quick. If
It
you
is
if you
awful.
like that stuff, I highly recommend Tubi because
Yes, Tubi has a
I
ton of
call
that
them
shit.
the tower records of streaming television.
Fuck yes.
And full disclosure, I may have a family member who may work for that streaming television show or television platform. But that said, even if he didn't work for it, I absolutely have watched some obscure, more animated stuff like 70s anime. But
Yeah.
but they got it all, man. It's crazy. Like
I
your
want
Amazon stuff.
I 100% have Tubi because uh, of your family member, and it is absolutely fantastic. I love everything I see on it.
There's Tubi's fun because it's just like random things. And you click it on, I'm like, holy shit. I didn't know I wanted to watch, fucking the original Total Recall.
You always
Or
want to
No.
Buck Rogers in
Or
the
Buck
21st
Rogers,
century,
yes.
or the original Battlestar Galactica, or the Curse of the Mayan something. I watched like 20 minutes of it and I had to turn it off. I'm like, my time's more valuable than this. But I always watched it because I just kind of came back from Playa del Carmen. So I'm like, Mayans, cool. Maybe I'll recognize something. No. Anyway. Andy, maybe should Andy go as far as what he's been watching?
Yeah, what have you been watching, Andy? I know you've had a little more free time. You just sent a kid off to college.
So a lot of porn. No, I'm not kidding. But I would.
It's on to about page 32 of your search results at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, it's okay. I would say I have rewatched all of the MCU properties twice in the last 3 months in
Wow.
timeline order, and I've enjoyed them all. I get something a little more out of each one, and frankly, with Hawkeye, I was really privileged, in my opinion, by accident. I watched. I had just finished watching Black Widow when the episode of Hawkeye came in, where it showed, Elena just like blimping out and coming back. And
That
I
was
mean,
cool.
it was so amazing. And I literally had just finished watching Black Widow, and all these things. It was just so perfect. It was like the perfect time for that episode to come out. So I've definitely been watching the MCU properties. I mean, Hawkeye for sure was just a real game changer for me. Again, bringing it back down to the street. Nobody shot fire from their hands or eyes. It was all about hand-to-hand combat, which is why I
Yes.
love. Well, that's why I fell in love with the MCU. Is that I feel like with the right training and maybe a little superhero serum that I could be one of those people. I know, right? So I go to the gym every day. Hasn't worked yet.
At our age, yeah.
Yeah, but so the MCU for sure. I've been killing it, and kind of excitedly, I never watched any of the Netflix. I watched a little bit of Jessica Jones, a little bit, like maybe 6 or 7 episodes, and I enjoyed it. I did not dislike it, but it didn't at that time in my life. I had 2 kids in high school, or a kid in high school and a kid in middle school, and there was just not time to devote to that, religiously. But now, especially that
Yes.
Charlie Cox and Matthew Murdock is part of the MCU officially, the last couple of weeks I've been diving into Daredevil, and I'm just about done with. Oh, it's awesome! I'm just about done with season 1, and I am 100% committed. It is a great series. It's clearly canon now, with 2 characters between Hawkeye and Spider-Man being in those properties. So I'm fully invested in becoming completely up to date with Daredevil. And I'm super excited about it too, because again, it's bringing it back down to the streets, which is super important, and it makes it more real. And kind of outside of the MCU, if I can say, with the with the release in the last couple of months, I'm not going to remember the name, but the Sopranos follow up.
The Jersey.
No, it's not Jersey. It's
I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah, the prequel with starring his son, right?
Yeah,
starring his son. Yeah, I watched, in our lifetime. So that was back, that was 20 years ago at least. Now I think.
90s.
I watched some of those, but I did not watch all of those. I watched them at random. We didn't have HBO back in the day, so I really couldn't watch them. But I've spent a lot of time on the treadmill watching those episodes, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I kind of miss a mobster movie. Like I think that, I remember all the Pacino movies. They were so good. I'm not talking just Godfather, but just all of them. They were Reservoir Dogs. We haven't had a really good dark mobster movie in a long time, and I miss it. I miss it a lot. The Town was probably the closest. Yeah.
Yeah. Departed.
I love that movie.
It's been recently that I had to be sold on The Departed, though. Like I didn't. Oddly enough, I didn't like it the first time I saw it.
Really?
The second time I saw it, though, for some reason, I absolutely loved it.
I think it's brilliant.
When is The Departed, though? I'm looking it up right now. That's 2006. That is legitimately 15 years ago. Yes. That's not recent. When's the last decent, gritty mobster movie that you saw? The Town is past The Departed for sure.
Yeah,
that's close. But that's not a mobster movie. That's just, I guess it's mobster adjacent. But we haven't had a really good mobster movie in a long time, and I miss it. I feel like I'm ready for a really good gritty bullshit one.
A decent mobster movie that was just out. It's not. It's not like the Italian Mob, but the Gentleman with Matthew McConaughey. I think it's a Guy Ritchie film. Was really really good. I enjoyed the shit out of that. Hugh Grant throughout that was so good because he puts on that stupid Cockney accent, but it's a total different character than he's ever played in anything that's been popular. And it's actually a really cool movie. And Charlie Hunnam is great in it as well because he plays slightly different than he normally does.
I enjoyed it. The biggest problem I had with that, and this is I judge a lot of movies this way, The Matrix being one of them, is it took me 3 evenings to watch it because I fell asleep halfway through, and I had to then start the next night. Matrix. I get what you're saying. So I enjoyed it. I totally agree with you. It was a good movie, but if it can't hold my interest from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, that's a problem. But The Matrix is the same way. Unfortunately, The Matrix for me, I really struggled watching that. You don't have a cough button, Pete? There's no cough button that you got there on that board? Just lazy as fuck. No, but the latest Matrix movie, I that was on purpose. I enjoyed it, but it took me 3 nights to watch the whole thing.
I still haven't watched it just because of that. You're the third person that's told me that they weren't able to get through it in one sitting. That it just didn't hold them.
It's not a short film either. It's over 2 hours.
Yeah, I think it's 2 hours and 40 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. And I did not like it. It was a fine movie. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't magical. It wasn't new.
Okay. But were you honestly expecting that?
I walked into the new Matrix movie the same way I walked into The Force Awakens. I was hoping for something that was going to be magical. Yes, I absolutely did. I believed in it. I'm not one of the people who didn't like the second and third Matrix. I liked the whole trilogy. I thought it was well done. And I thought there was an opportunity for them to go other places with this. And even the things that I saw, not spoilers, but
spoil away. Unless Kevin, do you care?
I don't care.
No.
Not gonna.
I'm not sharing spoilers, but the things that trailers, like
Yes.
I saw those trailers and I
Well,
feel
good.
like, okay, they have something here that they could take to the next level, and they didn't. It was basically a retread. It was basically a let's review all the great stuff that we did and let's give a couple of nuggets of maybe something that could be good. I don't know. It was,
I got pile on. I think that what I don't like personally is when, and here's what Marvel does so well that I feel like everyone else gets wrong. And that is I felt like the Matrix almost kind of shit on its past. Like I felt like it kind of was like saying, oh, you're being silly for thinking that the first three movies were profound. It was just like this silly thing. And I don't think it was just like a joke that was part of the movie. I actually feel like the director, Lana, was mocking the fandom for being as, attached to the films as it was. But instead of like denigrating the past, I think what Marvel does so well, particularly with, and I want to go right to Spider-Man, but like it actually celebrates the past and actually ends up elevating the past and the present, the same way I think J.J. Abrams was able to do it with Star Trek 2009. Now, I think that with Force Awakens, it then became, mimicry. And that's when J.J. Abrams started to lose his magic. But I think 2009 was that perfect blend of honoring the past and ushering a future. And it was brilliant. And I think here's what I'll say. Spider-Man No Way Home took what J.J. Abrams did and did it like 10 times better. Like, and it's so hard to do. And I think that's why it was so magical. That's why it resonated so well. And that's why it's a fucking $1 billion film. Okay. This isn't just some easy thing where all the haters talk about, oh, have a superhero in it and you have a hit. No, you're a fucking hater. That's not what it's about. It's about telling a good story and understanding the mythology and understanding the characters and delivering it on screen and adding something new. And The Matrix Resurrections absolutely did not do that. And they had the opportunity to, because Neo is iconic. Bullet time is iconic. The Smith Neo rivalry is iconic. And when you see what they did to Smith.
Yeah. Again, echoing stuff that I've heard. I had no to low expectations of it just because it wasn't.
I love that, no to low. It's great.
Well, because it's not going to be what The Matrix was. The Matrix, that first movie, the second two, actually, I enjoyed too. I thought they were great.
I was
okay the whole
with
story.
them, yeah.
But that first movie, when it came out, it changed the fucking game of action films in a way that hadn't been done for a little while. Like you saw a little bit, with the wire work from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and we got some of the bullet ballet from the John Woo stuff, and a lot of imitation of Asian cinema in that. But The Matrix, when it came out, took all of that shit to an entirely different level. I mean, the lobby scene alone for the gunfight, the fight choreo in that, Neo, and it's just an iconic film. So to go and say, okay, and they didn't give away any enough of the plot, but I got enough to know that okay, it is still the same Neo. Something else has gone on. We don't know what's going on here. All right, fine. But I wasn't expecting this like earth-shattering technological leap forward in filmmaking that The Matrix was at that point. So I'm excited to see it. Still, I want to watch it because I've always loved those characters. I think it'll be great to see Carrie-Anne Moss and the two of them back on the screen. It'll be fun. I know, but he's starting to look old too. Like Keanu Reeves is starting to look his age. Like for somebody who's always looked like fucking, he could just shave and be, fucking Bill S. Preston Esquire. He's starting to like, you're starting to see it a little bit.
That's why you have the hair thing, because when he shaved it off for Bill and Ted, you saw.
Yeah, he looked old.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. No expectations of it whatsoever. And this to touch on what you were saying about like the way the Marvel has done things right about like not shitting on the past. I think that's evident in the way that like people who have no idea who these characters are, because Marvel, let's be real, some of those characters that they use that they've made big in the MCU that are our household names, nobody fucking knew about when those movies came out. Like everybody knows fucking Groot and Star-Lord and Gamora now. You know, nobody knew who the fuck they were.
Even Iron Man. People people forget that nobody gave a shit about Iron Man before
Thor.
Robert Downey Jr.
Really? I mean,
well,
Captain America. None of them mattered. Like Marvel was dead. People also forget that the comic books, Marvel as a comic book company, no, they went bankrupt. Like they almost went out of business before these movies came out.
Which is why the fucking movie rights are so all over the goddamn place.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that really is, just to draw it back to the Matrix, watching those Matrix films, those first Matrix films, ushered in the ability for us to have the Marvel films we have now.
Oh yeah.
I mean, period. There's just in my mind, there's no way around that. The Matrix film showed that I think the first Hulk was pre-Matrix or maybe in the middle of the Matrix. Even that was and that was a fine movie. It wasn't bad, but it was all CGI. There was nothing really that fun about it. But anything after that and since post Matrix, I mean, that changed the way movies were. It changed the way you.
I want to say something. Andy, okay, yeah, I'll just jump in. Because when Neo,
I think he just muted himself.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, my bad.
Okay.
Can I I was gonna really quick. Neo, Mr. Smith, Agent Smith at the end of Revolutions. Okay, yeah. When they're fighting in the rain, like flying and all that shit. Like that to me, I have legitimately had I was jonesing for Superman stuff since as a kid at Superman 3. Never saw Quest for Peace. So when I see them flying, I'm just like, oh my God, it's like methadone mainlined in my veins. And I was tied over until finally, when I saw Man of Steel, I was like, the dragon has been tamed. Like I finally got my Superman. But until then,
Alex would love him, Kevin.
Okay, but seeing Neo and him fight like that. So Andy, yes, it was this is what you can do. This is what is possible on screen. And I just wanted to just tell you that's my favorite scene in that movie, and that's why I love Revolutions. I just fast forward right to that.
I agree with you, but I'm gonna say actually, even to add to that, only because I've just caught it kind of recently. The Matrix actually showed us technologically what we could do, and just in filmmaking with that. And I said, yeah, okay, we are getting close to these superhero films. But you know what movie actually really, really ushered in the complete modern superhero movie? And when you watch it now, you go, oh shit, the original X-Men.
Yeah. No,
It actually still kind of holds up. The effects are a little dated, even by today's series. But it was on, and I was like, "Oh, look, girls, we'll watch this." And we watched it, and I was watching, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
Because that one still tried to be grounded too.
Yes.
They got away from that, but that one.
I think it's underrated, actually.
Yeah,
it's underrated
because it gets overshadowed by all the sequels.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
plus the new iterations of the X-Men were also really, really good. They were different. They were their own kind of thing, but they were really. I mean, they're like the Christopher Nolan Batmans versus the original Tim Burton and Schumacher Batmans, and it's a much better movie than it's ever gotten credit for.
Yes, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
So my thoughts, and I dare say concerns, actually, about X-Men, especially after watching No Way Home, is are they going to try to somehow retcon the old X-Men somehow into canon through the multiverse? Yeah. And I, for one, I actually am not in favor of that. I'd rather see new, a whole
completely new.
They'll be new, but I think the way I look at it, it's still it's one of the slices of the multiverse. But I don't think that we are going to get a new 616, whatever you want to call it, back to the X-Men. But I will not be surprised if we see what's his name, Hugh Jackman or whatever.
Just show up for a moment.
Yes, a cameo in the multiverse of madness for sure.
All right. So you said Hugh Jackman, so you brought Wolverine into the picture. And Andrew, I know you and I talked about this on Sunday.
Yes, we did.
On who we want our Wolverine to be.
Scott
so
Eastwood.
Fuck you. I said I get to go first. I get to go first. You can agree with me, but you cannot say my person. So I want to go around the room, and I'm going to go first. And I really feel that Scott Eastwood. He is the right size. He has the right stature in Hollywood. He's the right age. And I feel like he would destroy the role. He could get as big as he wanted to be. He's got the facial features. I think he would kill at Wolverine and be able to kill it for 10 years easily before he ages out. And even that, I mean, fucking Clint Eastwood still, I think he could be a superhero right now at his age.
Stick, get off my lawn.
I would get off his fucking lawn. You know what I mean?
True.
Like, I feel like Eastwood for me, and clearly for you too, Pete, is a perfect. Now I agree. I think what's his name? Zac Efron could kill it too. I really think he could, but for me, Eastwood is the one. Pete, you get to go last. Drew.
So all right, so I'll go really quick. If I don't really have like a want in terms of like who could do it, I am actually intrigued by the idea of a Daniel Radcliffe because he is a smaller dude. I'm intrigued by that idea, and he is a genre guy. Like he was Harry Potter. Maybe he could be Wolverine. Matthew Vaughn, who directed First Class and was the reason why Days of Future Past, which is my favorite X-Men film. He's the reason why that's a good movie. Yeah. He thinks Taron Egerton to do it. And Matthew, of course, does the Kingsman films. So I kind of trust him as well because I trust his creative ability. Eastwood has the look. I don't deny that. But I felt like he was kind of wooden in the Suicide Squad. So he hasn't impressed me yet with anything he's done. But I've only seen him in one thing, but he's wooden to me. And I think that Wolverine needs to be someone who is visceral and very accessible emotionally and physically. And I think that which is why I'm intrigued by what's his name, Daniel Radcliffe, because I think that he is actually someone who's really good at emoting.
Yeah, he's my wild card guy. Like I don't really see it happening. But like just naturally he's also furry enough, right? Like he's got that look, but you're right, like he's the smaller guy, and that's the one thing that they have. And you struggle with it in Hollywood, right? It's hard to find a short leading man in Hollywood, and the ones the ones that are like Tom Cruise do their best to hide it, right? So
it's just an apple box. He's just got a guy that carries around his apple box with him constantly.
Yeah, so you're probably going to get a 5'10", 6 foot, Wolverine. That's just how it's going to go. I've always liked the look of Scott Eastwood. Like you said, I don't know if he's quite got the acting chops for it. We'll find out. And then Taron Egerton, I think, is an interesting one too. I think he's a better actor than Scott Eastwood, and that makes it interesting. But you're right. Like with the X-Men are going to hang out for a while. So if you cast him, it's got to be somebody, especially with Wolverine. Wolverine's the one guy that can't age, right? So you've got to find somebody that's going to look the same age in 10 years, or at least be able to do some makeup stuff. Or who knows, maybe at the end of the franchise they time jump and you get an old man Logan story or something. But he's the one that you can't get wrong. So it's tricky for sure.
Drew, did you see Eastwood in Fury?
No.
Did you see Fury?
No. I'll text it to myself.
Wait, Fury. Let me make sure I'm thinking of the right movie here. Is that the with what's his bucket? Yeah, the tank movie with
tank movie.
No, that movie. That's another one of those like super underrated movies, and he's really fucking good in it.
Okay.
Yeah, he is. I would suggest. I think so. Fury is one of those movies where if I turn on the TV and like Fury's on now, or it shows like in the movie like Fury's on, like I'm gonna watch it. It's fantastic. Anywhere you start it, it's powerful, and it's a delicious movie. It is so good. And Scott, his part is 8 minutes, maybe 10 at tops, but when I see him in that movie, that I see Hugh Jackman when he's in Wolverine and he's with Sabretooth, and he's in World War II or World War or Vietnam War, and he's running around. It just he looks like shit. That's Wolverine. Like you could make Fury canon easily. Like that you could make it out where that's actually Wolverine. I don't know. He's good. It's a tough go. It's a tough go. It's a tough go for me to not see. Like I would walk in to any Wolverine movie with an open mind and an empty stomach and be happy to see what I see, but I would be absolutely comparing it to what I think Scott Eastwood would do with the role.
Wow, that's rough. That's rough. And I was just gonna say that if I were, it's tricky, but you'll know it when you see it. Basically, I feel like if I've been casting, I'll know it when I see it. Yeah. But I feel like trying to imitate Hugh Jackman is just, in my opinion, a mistake. I think Hugh Jackman is like he fucking owned that role. Like he defined it as far as that iteration.
You know what's funny about that? You saying that though? I've always liked Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, but there's always been something that every time I watch it, it's just a little bit off. There's a level of feralness, if you will, that I don't think Hugh Jackman ever got across, except Logan.
Yes,
Logan was.
I hear that.
Was an absolute take the closet. It was just a brilliant character study. Like that whole Old Man Logan storyline. And Hugh Jackman played that to a T. Like I think as some of the Wolverine movies and some of the X-Men movies kind of carried on, I think he got a little, pun intended, long in the tooth for it, and he just kind of.
Wolverine's a tough character because Wolverine is not necessarily the family-friendly character. It's like if you make a series and you just throw in the Punisher, but it's a family-friendly series, you're not getting the Punisher that the Punisher would be by himself, right? So it's the same idea. Like when you do Logan, you say, okay, this is rated R. Then you get fucking Logan the way you're supposed to get Logan. Like it does make a difference.
I think.
Go.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to do a shameless plug for The Last Stand, though, really quick, because when he's running through the woods in Logan on his final stand, like he just pumps himself to that stuff, the feral thing.
Oh yeah,
that to me was like a callback to in The Last Stand, where he's running through the woods as well. He's trying to find what's her name, Jean, and he's like slicing and dicing like the Brotherhood of Mutants, and then of course he gets like caught by Magneto. But it's like that scene where he's running through it with the tank top. I was like, that was a little bit of that. But it's like he did it right. He did it right the second time when he did it in Days of Future Past. But anyway, I and even
when he's Weapon X. Oh god, I love that scene.
Did I say Days? I meant in Logan. But I liked him. I mean, I liked him. Again, I think he made the role his own. It might not be the most comic accurate version of Wolverine, but I still think that for live action, for a whole Fox enterprise that I think was one of my issues with Fox, frankly, they built the whole thing around him, in my opinion, which I don't think the X-Men like comic or whatever was supposed to be built around Wolverine. It was an ensemble, and but he served his role, and maybe he'll get a chance to do one more, hello in the MCU, but then we start it right with a kick-ass Cyclops and everybody else. So
if we don't get, I feel like Hugh owes us at least a cameo at some point with Ryan Reynolds.
Deadpool. Yeah.
Deadpool. Like we're owed that.
I think that will happen.
It will happen. And Andrew, I totally agree with you. Hugh Jackman owns that role. He killed the role. He was fantastic at it for sure. And I would dare say that I can't think of anybody in his class that could have done it better. I can't think of another actor that could pull off the role.
Gary Sinise.
Nah. Yes, but no.
Okay.
It's the problem with casting a new Wolverine right now is that we're kind of doing it. You're doing it just on looks. The problem is, and I think this is why Marvel has yet to push out or release any information on it. I think they're figuring out where they want to go with the X-Men.
Correct.
Because they've got the regular Marvel properties now where we've got this whole line that's our Spider-Mans and our Captain Americas and everything that we've built here. Deadpool works, and they said they're not going to monkey with it. It's going to be very interesting because it's going to be Disney releasing an R-rated movie.
Plus, he's actually in the MCU now.
Exactly. He's like canon MCU, which is so awesome. But that means that they have to decide whether they're going to make a very family-friendly X-Men, which the original films kind of were, or if they are going to let them go to the darker side. And since we're talking about multiverses, you're jumping right in, even though they've already killed Shatterstar and some other people.
I don't see a reason that the X-Men. I don't see the reason that the X-Men would not be a family-friendly show. Or a family-friendly series.
See, because then if you want to go non-family friendly, then I don't think we've seen Wolverine yet. I think Scott Eastwood could do the role very, very well. I think they would do better and do justice to the entire project by finding someone completely new or someone even less known than Scott Eastwood. Daniel Radcliffe that would be incredibly interesting. I honestly, because I love the Harry Potter films so much, and frankly, stuff he's done subsequently. If you've never seen Guns Akimbo, crazy fucking movie.
I keep meaning to watch that. It's on my list on Prime.
It's fucking insane. It is insane, and he's phenomenal in it. But I keep watching it, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to separate Wolverine from Harry Potter. I hope I would be able to, but he's so even watching Guns Akimbo, and it's so far out of the realm of anything you would think is Potter at all. I still look at him every now and then, and I'm just want him to be like Wingardium Leviosa. I can't help it.
Well, so real quick, just a funny note. Can you imagine if he becomes Wolverine, and then there's a moment where Wolverine and Doctor Strange share the screen, and Doctor Strange says some sort of Expelliarmus or something, and Daniel Radcliffe / Wolverine looks over and goes, "I think you said that wrong." That'd be fucking hilarious. I mean, that
would be clever. Yeah,
that would be good. But something to think about too. We are thinking about the X-Men being released in the MCU as what we've seen before.
Right.
Professor X, Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, Jean Grey. They could go like they started the MCU and pick fucking random, just random fucking
mutants.
Well, that was the sad thing about New Mutants.
Well, the sad thing about the New Mutants was kind of the New Mutants.
Well, no, but that's the problem. Those characters were fun. A lot of those characters actually in the comics, I've read a little bit of the New Mutant comics, were really fun, and they were a nice little offshoot, of that whole mutant world. And I was like, oh, this could be a good little springboard. But the movie was such a fucking turd. I finally watched it. It's just
I enjoyed it, and I have the New Mutants comics in my office, and I enjoyed them. But I think if I was Kevin, and I'm not you, Kevin, but Kevin Feige. Yeah.
Oh, we know who you meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all knew who you meant.
We know who you meant, dude.
I mean, you'd be lucky to be me too, but
Yes. I would dare say, not that he'd be scared to take on Storm, but I think the way his mind works, he'd rather build the Storm rather than start with Storm. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to think our first X-Men movie is probably going to be sprinkles of mutants, not an injection of them.
Oh no, you're completely right. And they'll do. I think you're right. If they did something, and this is what makes me honestly a little sad, because even though Dark Phoenix was such a fucking waste of film, like there's so many good actors that were cast in that entire series, as mutants. Like I could say, you know what? Grab Olivia Munn, give me a Psylocke movie.
Oh God, she was great as a Psylocke. She was a perfect Psylocke.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I love. Oh man, I have every X-Force comic there is, and she was a fantastic Psylocke. She was so good.
Yeah, that was.
I didn't. I have concerns. Damn it! Why do I am such a fucking dork? God, it's so. I have such a hot girlfriend, and I don't understand it. I hope she never watches this, because she'll be like, "Listen, what the fuck am I doing? This guy is on a podcast with 3 other guys talking about comic books. Jesus Christ!" But yeah, that Psylocke.
Hold on.
What the fuck just happened?
You just had like some sort of a little like nerd breakdown.
Yeah, like
you don't understand. You come home. My wife encourages me to do this so that she doesn't have to fucking listen to it.
Yeah, no.
Like this is my daughter's like, "Oh, you're recording. Thank fucking Christ."
Let's just say if she lived in this house with me right now, I'd be doing other things than talking to you 3 bastards on the phone. Yeah. And Mazel tov for me, for sure. And I can say that because she's half a Jew. But my point is that the
very strange turn.
This is
I'm used to our show going off the rails. I'm just not even sure we're on a fucking train anymore.
Keep it all. Keep this all fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Keep it rolling.
I just want the X-Men to be done the right way, because that's the properties I was introduced to when I was in 4th grade, 5th grade, one of those 2 years. We went on a family trip to visit friends that moved away, and they moved to Utah, and we went to Utah, and I was like, "Mom and Dad, what the fuck is there in Utah?" And they're like, not a whole lot. So we went to Utah, and I ended up with a friend of mine from from elementary school. And he's like, "Hey, do you read comic books?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Read these." And he handed me the Infinity Story, and I read 50 comic books in 2 days. I mean, less than that. I mean, I could not read them fast enough. They were so amazing to me. So my introduction to the MCU, or Marvel Comics in general, or comics really in general, was that trip and reading the Infinity Saga and learning about the X-Men. And I love the MCU so much, and what they've done and how they've introduced to us. And I've seen my kids enjoy it, and they understand it, and they can appreciate it. But again, because we can relate to it. So my hugest concern, and I'm terribly worried about it, more than I probably should be, is how they're going to introduce these people into the properties that I already love and respect. Because I own, if I can pull a Doctor Strange, there's only one way that this could happen the right way. There's
only one way that he saw that involves him living at that point too. We don't know if there were actually more ways that would have turned out, but that's the only way that he saw, because he has to be alive to actually see that vision.
Right.
And
I have faith.
Just saying.
I have faith. John Watts, basically, I pay attention to the directors, and I remember when Far From Home came out, and Mysterio does his first trip, he's putting Spider-Man through the paces, and I felt like it was the comic book come alive on screen. And the last time I felt that way, just as far as just, oh my God, I was just seeing the first, Spider-Man trilogy. It's just it's so bright and colorful. And I think that John Watts as a director, like I love him. I mean, because he's the guy who did, of course, No Way Home. And I hear he's going to be the one who gets Fantastic Four. And I just think he's going to be like the new Russos. Like the Russos were the heavy guns for the Infinity Saga. And I think Watts is going to be the heavy guns for this next era. It's going to be the heavyweight stuff, maybe to the point where the Russos are like, oh shit, like we don't want to eclipse. We're going to come back. I mean, Feige, dude, your track record is so fucking spotless. Like, I feel like things like Eternals happen because like you're letting, I don't want to get controversial, but I'll just say this. You're letting a certain like kind of contingent of society like infect what you're trying to do. And
he let an Asian woman have a voice and put her thing on it, and it's very clearly was there from stuff that I've seen. And from what I've seen, I liked it. Like I said, I haven't seen the movie yet, and I've heard the complaints, but visually, I think it's still within the line.
It's great, but the thing is, the pacing is all off. Like the movie did not need to be nearly as long as it did. And basically, I was getting sleepy until a certain point. It was probably like more than halfway through. Kevin, did you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. More than halfway through, it's not spoiling anything. There's a fight in the woods, and from that point, the movie's good. You know,
that's exactly what I've heard.
It was just like, dude, come on, Chloe Zhao. Like, we know you got the Oscar, but you've got go watch Infinity War. Okay, they packed a lot of shit, and it was like boom, 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 boom. That was the most perfectly paced film, in my opinion, of all the Marvel films. Infinity War was maybe even a little too fast, but fuck that, it was perfect. Whereas Eternals is a snooze fest, an indulgent snooze fest, and it's like, so you just don't want to you don't want to get too far away from what Marvel does best. And Spider-Man was what Marvel does best. Eternals was like the new Marvel, and it's just, again, I'm not hating. Everyone watching, look at me. I am not a hater of like, you know what I'm saying at all. Okay, but just because it's different, it's got to be good too. You got to have both, and just being different alone does not make it good. Sorry,
Drew. Drew, I have a confession. I watched the Eternals in the theater, and I need to rewatch it when it comes on Disney Plus because I fell asleep in the theater. But I'm looking forward to watching it again. And I will say this, and I told this to you, I think, is that the Eternals is going to end up being like.
Oh yes, you were right. Finish your thought. You're right about this. Go.
It's one of those movies that's going to be neat on the road, and we're going to watch it now, and we're going to be like, this is bullshit. This is Ultron. And then when you watch Ultron now, it's like, holy shit, absolutely 100% needed to connect the universe together.
Yeah,
I think the Eternals now, yes, it's a snooze fest. Again, I have to watch it again so I can see the whole movie. But it's going to be required watching for the universe to make sense down the road. And I think we're going to appreciate it a lot more at that point when Galactus or whoever the big bad is at the end, if it's not just Jonathan Majors. I don't think it's just going to be Jonathan Majors. I think it's going to be more than that for it to make sense. We need the superpowers that they have for this to move forward. I think, I hope. If not, then it's a complete waste, and MCU might have lost me if the Eternals is just some love fest for characters that, again, are extraneous to the universe.
And Ultron was like, you're right. I mean, I love Ultron now, and I remember thinking Ultron was a step back, but now it's a fucking genius film.
It's a great movie. Great movie.
I predict.
Especially. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
please.
No, I just, even watching What If. I mean, you watch What If, we could see what Ultron ends up being.
Yeah.
He ends up being this thing that can literally destroy. Oh God, I am such a dork.
Everything.
Everything. Just existence. Not even everything's not even the right word. He can destroy existence in What If, and that is what looks to be, from what I've seen from Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, again with a what if tie-in, what we might be looking at. We might be looking at the evil Doctor Strange trying to destroy everything. I'm very curious about that movie. Very curious about that movie.
I predict when that movie comes out, that's when they're going to announce that they've moved up and changed when the second half of Loki season 1 is going to air, because that's going to tie in directly. And I think Deadpool 3, which is scripting now and films in 2022, is going to be the bridge between the current MCU and how they bring mutants into it, because you got Ryan Reynolds with Cable's little time slider.
Yes,
and
that's good. That's good.
I think that's how they're gonna wind up doing it, because they're gonna throw a little Deadpool here and there, and you're gonna start introducing stuff like it's it was like the little Venom thing at the end of Spider-Man.
So what do you think about that? So the things that are,
well, I'll tell you what. Hold that thought for 1 second. Right. The only interesting thing of note that I've watched recently is, other than some stuff that we can talk about on a future episode, I went back and for some god unknown reason got in a very dark place and watched all 6 seasons of Oz. So if you're feeling like very prison shower rapey weeks, go ahead and check out Oz. Honestly, going back and watching it, I remember why I watched it so intently the first time. There is some very interesting stuff that happens, but the performances by every actor in that fucking show, absolutely amazing. Just absolutely amazing. If you haven't watched Oz, it is such a hard thing to watch, because it is, it's a prison, and it's dark, and a lot of horrible shit goes down. It's fucking phenomenal though. The performance of every actor in it is great.
If I've seen Prison Break, I should be fine, right?
No.
Basically the same show?
No, not at all.
Same thing.
So, you know what? With that being said, let's just jump into Spider-Man.
Let's do it. I'm in. I love fucking Spider-Man so much.
I have to say this before we start talking about it, and I said this in our other chat, Pete, but my wife fucking hated that movie.
Oh shit!
Which divorce her right now.
No, I can kind of understand.
No, because she's never been a Spider-Man fan. She's never liked Spider-Man. She didn't appreciate any performance of him before. She didn't like Tobey Maguire. She didn't like Andrew Garfield. It's just she wasn't a fan. And then when Tom Holland came up in the MCU, she fell in love with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Right? So up until No Way Home, everything Tom Holland did was solid gold for her. And so she loved him, and there was just like she actually texted me in the middle of the movie, and she was like, "I'm fucking bored," and it was actually at the one part of the movie that I do. If there was a part of the movie that I was going to call boring, it is the part when all 3 of them show up, because they spend so much fucking time just talking to each other, making stupid ass jokes that aren't needed. It was the vocal version of the Spider-Man pointing me. Yeah. Like they're just making cracks about each other. And for me, those didn't land. But for as much, and I did love, I loved the movie. I enjoyed it very, very much. But I think there was a portion in the middle of that movie that wasn't as good as the rest of the movie.
When they were kind of first introducing themselves to each other and getting to know each other, if you will, figuring out that they were all Spider-Men from different places, that part did kind of drag.
It's just
I see where you're going.
The dialogue didn't work for me. It was cheesy. Where the rest of the movie wasn't cheesy, that whole section was cheesy
because it had Tobey Maguire in it, who is easily the worst Spider-Man.
Look, I love Tobey Maguire. I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I would go watch that movie right now. I don't have a problem.
I watched Spider-Man 2 the same night. I had to go back and watch Doc Ock. So
Spider-Man 2 is a great movie because of Alfred Molina. I'm sorry, I never connected with Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield I thought was getting a little bit better, and then he went all emo. on it, and I was like, okay, this is great. This is, it's a different Spider-Man. They're letting him get emotionally raw. Tom Holland to me is the perfect Peter Parker.
Yeah,
Like that we have
I
seen
love
yet.
Tom Holland.
There's
He's my favorite for sure.
Like hands down. But I sobbed like a little bitch.
Oh yeah.
When they were like, just giving him advice, and then when fucking Andrew Garfield got to save MJ the way he didn't get to save Gwen, and when, hey, spoilers by the way, anybody, if you haven't seen it now, what's wrong with you? Dude, Aunt May with this iteration of the MCU, great power, great responsibility. And the Toby, see, she did it so well.
And just like her whole like death scene, because there is, I feel like there's a moment in there where you're like, oh, she's gonna make it, where like
there was for a second, they're like, they're not gonna kill Aunt May. They're not going to kill Aunt May. And then they kill her, and she says it. And it was interesting because I didn't this is the first Marvel movie that, other than the Eternals, that Soph and I haven't gone together on like opening night or opening weekend. Because she went and saw it with a friend, because she's getting there in years now, so it's just not that thing.
She finally realized that you suck and she has cool friends.
Exactly. Yeah. So I took Stella. This was me and Stella's first little Marvel. She absolutely loved it, but she didn't get a lot of the inside baseball, and I couldn't explain it to her because she's 9 and there's just too much wrapped up in there. Like trying to explain to her J. Jonah Jameson, and she's like, yeah, but that guy's voice, he sounds exactly like, I'm like, yes, that is who it is. And he's the guy from the Farmers commercial. And, she absolutely loved it because she's liked all the other Spider-Man movies, but she wasn't understanding the gravity of the other two Spider-Man. And I could tell, I went and saw it in a good theater, but you could tell very, very easily during this movie who were like the kind of comic book movie nerds, if you will, because when certain things happened, you heard noise from certain sections of the theater, and you're like, oh, okay, they for lack of a better term, get
for
this.
Me too, there was 2 points in the movie where the audience cheered. And the first one was when Matt Murdock showed up, which has absolutely nothing to actually do with the movie.
Nope, not a damn thing.
So, but fucking awesome. Okay. And I can't even remember what the second one was. But that one was definitely more of a Spider-Man moment. I just don't remember when it was, but it was interesting. Like it wasn't as perfect a film as I wanted it to be. But it was still like, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's not my top movie. It's not my top Marvel movie. Endgame is still my favorite. I'd put Infinity War before Spider-Man.
Oh, I loved this. I absolutely loved this. But I'll be honest with you, I'll put the first Guardians in front of this, for not in terms of quality of film, but for which one I liked more. Like I really liked this, and it put a a nice little, if this is the end of Spider-Man in the MCU as we know it, because Sony gets sand in their knickers, and
it doesn't sound like
about it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the issue is between Sony and Marvel right now. It actually sounds like the big issue is going to be with Tom Holland.
Correct.
Yeah.
You need more money.
I don't even know if he's that. Like he
might just be done with it. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think he just might be done with it, because Tom, I forgot. I think it was on Graham Norton that he like talked about it was an offhanded thing. I think he did what Robert Downey Jr. did, and he just asked for points on everything, and every Spider-Man that he's been in, or everything he's been in, he hasn't been getting like any sort of. It's just been straight points across the board. So I think money wise, maybe. I think it also might just be that he just may be getting done with Spider-Man. I think he might be a little worried about getting typecast as this is who he's going to be.
Well, I think he's actually done a really great job avoiding that. If you look at a couple, he did the Netflix movie.
The Army one.
No.
Yeah.
Was it Army?
No.
But there was one where he was like super crazy.
Yeah. I don't remember the name of the movie, but it was good.
Wasn't he like a vet that came home?
Yeah, drug and he was like I don't remember the name of the movie, but he was good. And really in the movie that we saw the preview for on Spider-Man, the video game
Uncharted, whatever it's called.
Uncharted.
He looks good.
Yeah.
I haven't played any of those games. I'm loosely familiar with them, and that to me looks really, really good. And honestly, Mark Wahlberg doesn't look too bad in it, which is hard for me to say.
I'll tell you what, as somebody that has played those games multiple times, it is definitely a strange casting.
Really?
I've heard a lot of pessimism around it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Primarily because like once they really ironed out that yes, for sure, this is a super young version of the character, that was okay. But the issue that they have with casting that game into a movie is that Nolan North is a very comedic, very dry comedic actor, and he has the same sense of humor as somebody like Nathan Fillion, who the character is designed to look like.
Yeah.
So when everybody was fan casting this before it became a movie, the only person they wanted was Nathan Fillion, like period. Like there was no other person to play this role. And then when you cast Sully, who is Wahlberg's character, that character is very different in the games than Mark Wahlberg is. So it'll take some directing to really get him to be the right character for that too.
Doesn't it come out in January? Because if it does, that's
let's go find some Trisha. Say hi to your mother.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think it's going to be good. I think the trick there is going to be to get the real video game fanboys to just kind of step back and accept it. I'm ready for it. I love Tom Holland, and I think he's going to do a great job. I don't know that he quite has the level of like snark that Nolan North or Nathan Fillion has. That does make it a little interesting. He's a little more of like the cutesy kid than he is the tough kid.
Maybe more than the tough kid I was, but maybe that's the thing. Maybe they're only showing us those little aspects of him because that's what we're so used to seeing with Tom Holland to draw you in, and then you watch it and it's going to be a very different Tom Holland in that role.
Yeah, we'll see.
It was tough watching the preview. I was very much looking at it. I was like, okay.
Oh, the second trailer really got me.
It's like Peter Parker, like the actor. Oh yeah, I'm gonna see it. It looks phenomenal, and I love those movies. Like stupid TV that I absolutely love. If you've never watched it, but you're into like the Indiana Jones type stuff, they're so bad. But the Librarians series with Noah Wyle and stuff, they're cheeseball as fuck. Mm-hmm. But they're really, really fun to watch if you like those little kind of adventure-y movies like that. And they've got this really cool like fantasy sci-fi aspect to it with what the whole library is. But I digress. Side note, speaking of video games, that Last of Us is almost done filming.
I know, dude. I'm ready for that. That's another one. Where the casting fucking pissed people off.
Yeah.
Like, because it is so different. Like people were like pushing so hard for Hugh Jackman because the story is so similar to Logan.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a dude and a girl. They're not father and daughter, but they build that relationship over time. And everybody wanted Hugh Jackman. A lot of people wanted Nikolai Coster-Waldau or whatever his name is from Game of Thrones. Still a great casting. What they got was the Mandalorian, who is Latino but the character's from Texas. And some people were really hung up on that. And I was like, who gives a shit? It does not have to be the identical telling of the story. If anything, it should be a different but similar telling of the story. So they cast him, and then they cast the guy that played Ghost Rider in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show.
Yeah.
Good.
That's his brother. So there's that kind of Latin feel there. And then they cast the other girl from Game of Thrones, the young, super badass, like little girl that was running a kingdom. No. The one that had
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I know
but she got cast. So the cast is amazing. People don't like it because it doesn't look and feel like the game. but Neil Druckmann, who wrote both games, is heavily involved. It's being created by the guy that did Chernobyl.
Okay.
So I mean, there's a lot of
so
reasons.
It's going to have that post-apocalyptic dark feel that the game is going for.
There are a lot of reasons to believe that show is going to be fucking fantastic. So
I'm really, really interested. Just another side note before we get back into Spider-Man. Has anybody on here watched the Wheel of Time series on Amazon?
I started. I got bored with the first episode.
Okay, good. Someone told me to watch it.
Get through it. Just get through the first episode. It picks up.
I just read that the ending fucking sucked. Like I just read today that the ending is fucking horrendous. I've never read the book, so I do have an advantage there.
It's rough. I want to grab Dave to talk about this one because Dave's a huge fan of the books. I've read all the books. But anyway, I was just curious. Cool. That's another side. Anyway, so that aside, yeah, Spider-Man. I absolutely loved it. Willem Dafoe, creepy as fucking all balls.
Still. I love Willem Dafoe though. I've always loved Willem Dafoe. He is just Willem Dafoe, and that's that.
And he sold me that Harry Osborn had that had turned sides. I was like, oh shit, this is cool. Like I see what they're going here. Like I'm like, cool, redemption for this character.
But his character is interesting because he did want to be redeemed. That side of him did want to be redeemed. He's literally two characters in one, and it just happens that the asshole dickish character, that the bad guy there, is the stronger of the two.
Yeah, I loved No Way Home, and the thing about why I loved it so much is my expectations were actually sky high. So I go in there, and I don't think I had the best crowd. It was 10 a.m. on a Saturday, but for me, the two times that they cheered was of course Murdoch, but then actually, even though everyone was expecting it, that first portal where you see Andrew Garfield kind of like turn around.
I think that was it for us too.
They fucking cheered, and I was just like, I mean, I knew it was coming, but I was still like, yes. And then just like crawl on the ceiling, like. I liked it. I liked the fact
that stuff was fun.
It was funny shit. Like go get that spider web in the corner. I'm lame.
You don't make your own webs?
Amazing. You're amazing. I mean, we all laughed. Like it was just like all the tongue-in-cheek stuff. I have two brothers, so for me, like that resonated.
It was some brother shit. Oh yeah.
It was some real brother shit. Yeah. I liked the fact that like. The redemption thing was great. I mean, even the fact that like I know Spider-Man is like the shit, right? So the fact that like this kid, or he's not a kid anymore, but he's sort of a kid, was still able to outwit Dr. fucking Strange, who could go toe to toe with Thanos. Like I was thinking to myself, okay, Spider-Man, when he grows up, he's really going to be the center of this whole thing. So I thought that was really good character development there. The part that I cried out the most, I mean, like I'm not even gonna front, I cried, was just at the end, like when he's walking in and he sees MJ and she doesn't know him.
It's fucking heart-wrenching.
And then he's literally at the grave of Aunt May, and Happy's like, they don't know each other.
Yeah.
I was like, what a lonely existence. But it was just so brilliant because you started, Peter, at like level 10 with Star Technology, and you really did a soft reboot, and now he's legitimately going to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man with the the sewed suit and everything. And I'm gonna say I liked Tobey Maguire. I liked him. Sorry, like I liked him. Yeah. I liked him.
Oh yeah, a lot of people do. A lot of people do. It just wasn't
my boy. Totally like wimpy, like just soft dude. And so to see him actually kind of older statesman and like get stabbed, I've been stabbed before, I thought he was going to die. So the fact that he didn't die was awesome. And just also even that scene where Tom Holland is literally going to kill this motherfucker. I was like, yes, it was very cathartic, So I just felt like the movie took me on an emotional roller coaster, and it made me. So what I was telling people on Facebook was it my favorite MCU movie? No, but if I want to give it any like title, for me, it was the film with the most heart. I feel like the end of Endgame, of course, had a lot of
except for the last 25 minutes of Endgame.
What's that?
I said except for the last 25 minutes of Endgame.
Yeah, that was just like that was just epic. Infinity War, epic. Endgame, but I just felt like this film was like it just took literally 20 years of like or almost 20 years of spider lore, 19 years, we're like 2002, right? 19 years of spider lore, and gave everybody resolution. Everyone. I mean, the villains even. And the fact that Doc Ock, who always was a good guy with damn tentacles, actually does the right thing at the end. I was like, see, you guys understand your characters too. So I just felt like it was just so well done. And when I went back to watch Spider-Man 2, I enjoyed it more. Shameless plug. The building I live in is actually the building used for the exterior shot for Harry Osborn's little apartment there. So when I was watching it and I saw the exterior, I'm like, I'm watching this movie like from the building in the fucking movie. So anyway,
there.
I was just gotta throw that out there. So anyway, I loved it. One more thing, two more things. Your casting discussion was reminding me of the shit show that was Cowboy Bebop, because that was a casting snafu. And then I'm hoping that we can talk about Ghostbusters really briefly, but let's go back to Spider-Man. I just want to throw that in there.
We can talk about Ghostbusters.
Right.
I didn't get a chance to see Ghostbusters, but you guys, I'd love to hear some discussion on that if you guys want. But yeah.
So real quick, I am super curious with Venom. Okay. I can't. The rumors are now that Garfield is going to have another movie.
Yes. In the Venom universe, right?
In the Venom, yes. And that makes sense. Like he's somehow going to fight Venom, although there's a little piece of Venom left in our universe with Tom Holland. So who knows what happens? There could be another team up at some point to fight Venom or something. But I'm excited about Garfield because I really missed the third film. I think he deserved one more film.
Yeah, he's having a moment.
Yeah, it was good. I feel like they ended his universe because they felt like they had to, but there was no reason to. The second film was not nearly as good as the first, for sure. But it was a good film. It did not deserve to be like snuffed out.
I like those two better than the first and third Tobey Maguire's. The second Spider-Man it was great. Spider-Man 2 was great.
Yep.
I can't knock that. Like even if you, it's a great movie from beginning to end.
No,
I just liked Andrew Garfield more than Tobey Maguire. I don't know why, just on a visceral level. And I actually think it might have more to do with Kirsten Dunst, because I don't think I liked her. I think it was just the whole mix that just didn't, like, I don't know, it was the whole vibe like of the first Spider-Man. It was like they were fun. It was great to see like all the effects that they were doing. I was like, this is really, it's a fun movie to watch. I just didn't connect with it. From like Garfield, I connected with a little bit more, but then I wanted to have like a few cocktails afterwards because it's like, Jesus Christ, the guy cries at fucking everything. But then Tom Holland steps on again. I said it 5 minutes ago. He stepped onto the screen in this one, and I was like, oh, that's fucking Peter Parker. Like, that is in my mind, when I've always thought of Peter Parker, that is exactly how he is. He's got some shyness, and there's still some timidity to him, but he's also wisecracking. There's this aloofness, and I loved it.
No, you're right. I feel like Tom took Spider-Man. He took. I really did love Garfield. Okay, so Maguire did a good job of being a Spider-Man for sure. Garfield made it more comic book accurate in like, I am like this dude who is at the high school and I got this shit. I don't know what I'm doing. And then Holland did that too, but he, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it from the movie perspective, he had way more help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had billions of dollars behind him to do the shit that Garfield.
The thing about that too is that we do skip some of Spider-Man's development in the MCU because he was flipping around in a suit that he made, right? Like that was happening. and we just never saw that because that Stark found him because he was doing that, and then brought him in. So there was a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in the MCU that we never saw.
Fair.
So that's, we did miss out on that, unfortunately.
I did think I like though still how in this movie, even though we didn't, because it was the one thing we talked about this, Kevin, when they were first coming out, one thing we loved was that they didn't go and rehash Spider-Man's origin story. They just gave it to you. But in this one, they circled back around and they said, no, maybe it's not Uncle Ben, it's Aunt May that dies. There's not even a mention of an Uncle Ben, and Aunt May goes and she gives him great power and great responsibility. And that whole little speech, that moment to me, that's exactly that whole little section with Aunt May. I at first too, I was like, they're not going to fucking kill her. They're not. She's an Oscar award winning actress, Marissa Tomei. They're not going to fucking kill her off if they're going to continue. And they fucking kill her. And I was like, holy shit. But it worked.
Yes.
And it wasn't cheeseball. It wasn't overdramatic. Because that was one of those moments that had that whole little segment to kick that off had the chance to be super cheese dick to the point where you were just kind of like, all right, I get it. But it wasn't. They pulled it off and they did it very well. They made it very touching. And
realistic, because it was actually kind of sudden. Like she was probably in so much shock. She didn't even realize she was that fucked up.
Exactly. I thought they ended that very well. It was heartbreaking at the end when nobody knew him. It really was.
But it was needed.
Yeah. Oh, completely.
That is what, I mean, that's who Spider-Man. I'm trying to explain this to my kids, the girlfriend, her kids, like the whole time, like what we just saw is what us should have been wanting the whole time, is this Spider-Man who is exactly who he is. Unknown, living in a shitty ass apartment, doing the best he can with the little he has. I mean, that's who we want. That is Spider-Man. What we've seen with Tom Holland is not Spider-Man. I mean, he is Spider-Man, but it's not the Spider-Man that we've read.
Yeah.
I mean, Garfield, Maguire, they showed us the Spider-Mans that we read for sure. 100%. And I do love that. I'm so happy we did not get another origin story. We did not need that. We don't need that. I don't want that. I don't give a fuck. Lily, my daughter, asked me like, well, where's Ben? Who's this Ben guy? I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't care. Yeah. I don't, if he comes up later in life, I don't give a shit, but I hope that he's never a storyline. I don't need to know that part of it. We now have a Spider-Man who is a man of the people that nobody knows, who's this guy who's doing the best he can with all he has to help to protect us. I hope that the next time we see Spider-Man, we see him with Daredevil, like this person who.
Yes,
I think they set that up.
Yeah,
brilliantly.
I totally agree that nobody knows either one of them, right? There's this secret people who are.
I'm gonna say
both are.
Someone's trying to get his city back. That's all I'll say. Someone's trying to get his city back, and now we're going to see this showdown between that individual and Daredevil and Spider-Man. Oh, dude, shit's gonna be fucking lit.
Well, and it's set up with Hawkeye, with Kingpin. No, it is set up.
Well, I mean, no. I was trying to, but Pete hasn't seen Hawkeye, so I know you said no spoilers, but
no, go for it. Really,
okay, then Andy, that's what I was alluding to.
Yeah, for sure. We have Kingpin, who is now part of the MCU. We have Kate Bishop. I can see Kate Bishop, and I can see Daredevil, Charlie Cox, Matthew Murdock. And I can see Spider-Man coming in and swing in to save the day too. Like we have these people, you know, I would love Jessica Jones. I would love them all to be part of it.
Well, the reason the Netflix ones worked so well is that they were all those New York based.
It was Hell's Kitchen.
Right.
It was just Hell's Kitchen in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see some of them come back. It's really a bummer that Iron Fist sucks so bad. Like that was the biggest bummer.
The only one that I really want to see come back, and again, Andy, since you haven't watched those as you're watching through, John Barenthal's Punisher.
Yeah.
Was
I watched all of the Punishers. I watched all of the Punishers.
The second season was rough. But I
thought the second season was as good as the first.
That first season was great. I think we've seen a couple of iterations of Punisher on screen now. I think Thomas Janes was not Frank Castle at all. And I think
John
the second one
was Frank Castle.
He was perfect. Absolutely perfect as Frank Castle. Jessica Jones, here's the problem. I think Jessica Jones and I think we will see them some more. I think we may even see the whole Defenders again.
I don't think you'll see Iron Fist again.
I don't think we'll see him again.
I don't think you can justify bringing that guy back.
Yeah,
I'd love to see Luke Cage. I loved him. I thought he was fucking awesome.
Yeah, that whole segment was great. Yeah, the Iron Fist. God, they just did that no justice whatsoever.
But they tried to bring Jessica Henwick in for Shang-Chi. They tried to cast her as, I think it was the sister. I think that's who they tried to cast her as, and she said no. She turned it down because number one, she had the Matrix in the pipeline, so she wanted to do that. But she also said, "I'll wait until you decide to bring Colleen Wing back from Iron Fist."
Nice.
She's like, "If you want to bring that character back, you call me and I'll be in the MCU."
Nice.
Which is on the one hand kind of a ballsy move, right? Like you've got the biggest franchise on the fucking planet asking you to come do it, and you're like, "Why don't you come to me when you're ready?"
You know what though, and part of me is kind of like, you chose the Matrix over the MCU,
right?
So I'm just kind of like, you know what, like, bye, like.
But I loved her as Colleen Wing. Like she was the best part of Iron Fist.
There, and she was actually, I'll say, I liked her in the Matrix. She was actually, I think, probably the best part. I'll say it. I think so.
Who'd she play?
She played.
She had the blue hair, right?
Yeah. She was like the main character, really. She was like the Trinity, the new Trinity, if you will. Like she was badass.
Yeah.
Okay.
I liked her too. She was good.
Yeah.
For sure.
So the other thing we talked about, or we decided to talk about on this episode, considering it is kind of the last one of the year, is the kind of what we liked both in TV and film from 2021. There's a lot in there. I started trying to make my own list. And there's a lot on the kind of like BuzzFeed, NPR, Empire lists that are I haven't seen a lot of these movies. I feel like I'm looking through a lot of these lists and I'm like, okay, some of it just came out recently. Some of it's like the Oscars. I'm like, I don't see any of these. There's a lot though. It's interesting. If I go to the Den of Geek, there, the little BuzzFeed. Jesus. Everybody, the one thing across the board with especially streaming television, everybody loved WandaVision. So that WandaVision is pretty much the best thing. Followed, second or third by most people was Squid Game.
Which what?
Squid Game.
Oh yeah, I love that.
So I followed the rules, Pete, and I made a top 5 list that I did not put in any specific order. But on that list, I actually put Midnight Mass and Squid Game together because they came out.
Midnight Mass is top 10 on
every list. Well, those two came out within like 2 weeks of each other. And Squid Game was good. I found Squid Game to be a little predictable, and it was good. I'm not knocking it. I liked it a lot. But I would say that Midnight Mass is probably one of the best bits of television I've seen in the last couple of years for sure. It's done by Mike Flanagan, who does the Haunting of Hill House and the other one, and he's now filming The Fall of the House of Usher for Netflix. And I think he is the modern serial horror storyteller of like our time right now. Like he's he's doing amazing stuff. Like if you haven't watched The Haunting of Hill House or Bly Manor, those are amazing, but they don't necessarily tie together. But Midnight Mass was fucking brilliant. Like the first episode was maybe a little slow, but by the end it was incredible.
Hamish Linklater's in this. There's actually a few Annabeth Gish in this.
He is fucking spectacular.
Hamish Linklater, really?
Dude, he's amazing. He's amazing.
It's so hard for me to. I see him and stuff now, and it's been nice to like see him, like do some more high profile things, and start to get some play with stuff like that. Because the very first thing I saw him in, that if like I don't want to say most people, but one of the very first things he did was a movie, and I think it came out in 1999 called Groove, which was you wouldn't have seen it. It's it was filmed, produced, and done here in San Francisco, and it's the tale of a rave in one night in San Francisco, from like the setup and like the group of people that come, and he plays this square dude that's going to his first party and this and that, and you could tell there's a few people in it that you'd recognize. You could tell then though, of the people in the cast that were going to go on, he was going to have a future.
Yeah.
Like there were a couple of people you're kind of like, okay, small indie flick, your local casting kind of thing, and you got Cree. I mean, Cree Summer was in it, with a really small part and stuff like that. But like you watch it and you're like, and it's not even that the role was that good. He was just good enough that you're like, oh, you're going to go on and do some stuff in the future. Like this guy's going to have a career. These other people, there's a possibility, maybe you're going places, fella. So it's kind of nice to see him in, still acting like that. And he's like, I just Googled it to look at the list, and it's very interesting. The kind of movie poster kind of esque thing that it did has this very 80s vibe to it. And it's like all painted, and he's got a very interesting face. I'm interested with this, and horror is usually not my jam.
It's loosely horror. Like it has its horror elements. There's a little more suspense to it. But man, it's just a good story. It's just a really good story, and I don't want to give too much away if you haven't seen it. But I can't recommend it enough. Like I'm trying to get my wife to watch it, and she does not like horror at all. Yeah. But I think it's good enough that if she can get past that element of it, she'd really enjoy it.
I can get it on in our house if it's like a suspense thriller thing more than it is like a. I mean, I'm not expecting it to be like an Eli Roth kind of thing, but as long as we stay away from the kind of Blumhouse.
No, it definitely it's intelligent. Like, did you watch Bly Manor or Hill House?
No, I watched Hill House.
So it's no more scary than that.
Okay.
And so but it's got the same kind of twists and turns and things like that, and the acting's great. And I would not be surprised if Hamish is up for an Emmy or something.
Cool.
He was fantastic. And then if I just the only other thing from my list that we haven't really talked about before, and I don't know if anybody has seen, is Arcane on Netflix.
Okay, have not yet, but that is another one of those that's like right there. Like,
dude, like when it started, I was like, I don't know, maybe it's a little slow. By the end of the third episode, those first 3 episodes are fucking incredible. Like what they do with the story, and where they take it, and then where it goes is awesome. Like I fucking absolutely love that series. I'd never played the game, the League of Legends, so I have no context from it. And what I've actually heard is that's actually been more beneficial for a lot of people than if you had played it.
Which is what I'm hoping for. I like it because I don't have and that's why I'm actually kind of interested in it, because I know literally nothing about League of Legends at all.
Yeah, I know nothing.
Some fucking esports thing. That I feel like I can get on board with an entire mythology without having any sort of preconception to it. That that's not the way that fucking Fireball works, or something like that. So that's one that I heard Arcane. I think Alex way back when talked about wanting to wait until like both seasons were out so you could just binge them
Well, there's only one
altogether.
season, and the next season won't be until 2023 probably.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be a while.
Then maybe it was.
By the way, Haley Steinfeld
voice actress in there.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, she's great in it too. Actually, she's really good. The voice acting, like, if you look at the budget, they spent a shit ton of money making this show, but the visuals are spectacular. The acting is great. Like, the direction for an animated feature is amazing. Like, everything just lines up. It's so good. The only other like big name off the top of my, I don't even call it a big name, but the name that you might recognize is Kevin Alejandro. Mm-hmm. He was on Lucifer, and he was on True Blood and a couple other things. He's the only other like name off the top of my head, but fuck, dude, it's so good. Like, I am waiting to watch it again. I watched it with my oldest son, and we weren't sure what it was, and we just kind of put it on, and like he's like, it's my favorite thing I've ever watched. He's like, wow, he wants to watch it again. Like, it's awesome.
I was just impressed that made a few of the lists that I saw within the top 10. Invincible actually made it in there, which
I haven't watched that yet, but I've heard good things about that.
Oh, it's dude, you watch the first episode. I talked about it on the show in the past. You watch that first episode, and it's a little boring almost. It's a little slow, and then you get to the very end, and it's like, what the fuck? And then the rest of the series doesn't stop from there. It just goes. It really is like just I know it, like, it will. At first you're gonna be watching, you're gonna be like, yeah, this is okay. I don't know what the shit they're talking about though. Like, this being so good, and then you get literally it's the last 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, this is what I'll be doing for the next 4 hours while I fucking binge through this. Invincible is so good.
Pete, did you guys watch The Boys?
Mm-hmm. I finally did watch The Boys. Yeah,
I have not watched the recent season. I enjoyed what I saw a lot. It reminded me of Heroes, but with like comedy filtered in. I really loved Heroes a lot. I loved Heroes. Mm-hmm. I think that's a series that is kind of a little bit lost in this whole resurrection. Maybe not resurrection, whatever you want to call it, a superhero. Yeah, Renaissance, probably better. That's probably better.
Andy, it's funny you say that, because the last time I was on this show, I actually brought up watching Heroes on Peacock.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I had never seen the first season. I jumped on the second season, and of course the show kind of deteriorated as the seasons went on. So when I watched the whole first season, I was like, I mean, there's heavy hitters. I mean, you had Brian Fuller, you had Jeff Loeb, and there's one more person. There are 3 people who are all showrunners in their own right, and they were all on that show. And Stan Lee even made a cameo. So it's like Heroes, actually, it's underappreciated now. I think it absolutely helped pave the way for the Renaissance.
It fell by the wayside because of its later seasons. I think if it had kept up the quality of the first season or had ended sooner, it would probably still be more respected than it is.
Agree.
That's Heroes. That Hayden Panettiere's that was Save the Cheerleader, Save the World.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Panettiere reminds me of like an early clone of what's her name, Yelena. They have the same kind of vibe. They're both kind of tan with the blonde hair, and they're like little tight-sized firecrackers. Yeah,
I liked her. I could see her as an MCU person personally.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed Heroes. I liked it. It's a series that if it showed up as on one of the streaming services, like, hey, you want to watch this again? I'd probably watch it again. I enjoyed it.
It's on Peacock.
Is it really?
Peacock. Yeah.
Is it?
I thought
it's totally on Peacock. That's how I watched it this year.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. That was one I remember watching a couple of episodes, and I forget there was something else on at the same time, and this was in the days when we were, DVRs were just starting to be a thing in your house when that show was on, so you were still fucking VCRing shit. if you wanted to watch it. So I think that was another one of those like, God, this show seems good, but I'm gonna make that conscious choice to watch this instead. And I kept. It was the same thing with Lost. I forgot there was something else that was programmed against Lost. We've talked about this, Kevin. That was like I watched an episode and I was like, okay, I can see this show's going to be kind of cool, but I'm kind of already watching this. I can't get into Lost. Yeah,
I fucked that up.
I know. It was definitely a wrong choice. Yeah, Heroes. I'm interested in going back and kind of revisiting, and kind of seeing, just to it's like Andrew or Drew said it was good, but I have heard from a couple other people who have rewatched it that it doesn't hold up as well, just based on other stuff we're seeing now on television. That at the time it was a little on the groundbreaking side, if you will, even with just the storytelling and the special effects that you had for what they were doing for on TV. But now you're on TV and you see what they're doing and you're like, eh.
That's not untrue. I would agree with you on that 100%. And I will bring up Matrix again, the original trilogy, but I would challenge. And to be fair, I have not watched it. I have not watched the series since it aired. I don't think. I can't think of a time I would have watched it before then. But if I could recall from when it aired and share with you now, like it was special. It was different. It was what we're seeing now in like Hawkeye, I guess, I suppose. I'm not going to pull in any end game or anything like that, but from a real life Earth-based fight scenes and how that works, like it worked. It did it. It really was groundbreaking in that regard. It was special, and I really enjoyed it. And as it went on, it did it did not continue to live up to the expectation. But I get that. It changed the way that I watched movies like that. It changed the way that I watched or I expected superheroes. I don't even like saying that. I really feel like saying superheroes is not fair anymore. Like, what do we call this genre? It's just not that anymore. I don't think it's that. I think the DC universe is superhero movies. I don't know what you call the MC universe. Andrew, I'll tell you, I sent you a message earlier this week about what I said about Bumblebee. Bumblebee is not a Transformer. It's just not a movie about Transformers. It's a movie about love and life, and it just happens to have this beings in it that transform into different things. It's different.
But Bumblebee was the one Transformers movie that all the other Transformer movies should have looked like and acted like, in my opinion. But that's neither here nor there.
True. Totally true. 100% true. But that's the difference between MCU and DCEU, is that Marvel movies are human based. It's heart based. If you were to watch a movie in Marvel, and in my opinion, I don't look at those movies as superhero movies. They're human movies that have people that happen to have powers or abilities, and that factors into how the movie plays out. But it's not what the movie's based on. Right. But in DC, it's the opposite. DC, it's these powered people. And we talk about how somehow their human side fits in. I'm not saying they're bad. They're just different. One has one foot forward. The other one has the other foot forward. And if we were to, again, we're talking now, I brought up about Heroes. Heroes is more about that. It was more about human base that had these abilities tied to it. but that's why I liked it, and that's why I like MCU, and that's why, as much as I love DC, I think that's their major flaw, is that they base their movies on these powers rather than the people.
Andy, I gotta jump in. I think you actually, that was brilliant. And I'll tell you why. Because what makes me nervous about Black Adam is all The Rock talks about is, oh, there's a new sheriff in town. I can beat up Superman. It's like your whole thing is about how powerful you are. And that's not relatable at all, you know? And I actually really think you nailed it. I think that's the difference. Like the DC world, it's like about Man of Steel, or this Batman is not about, he's just angry and killing people. Like, you know, where Wonder Woman's like, I am Wonder Woman, like, you know, that fucking, you know, that music shows up and then she's just like doing all this crazy shit. But we don't really know the characters, you know. Maybe Aquaman tried the hardest at humanizing, or what's it called? Shazam. I think that one was another one where it was maybe more human based than the powers, right? But no, I man.
Well, no, you're right. Shazam actually was the only one of the DC films that you can look at and go, it had that Captain America-esque vibe to it, in a way of it's more than the suit or the powers. It's the kid himself. Like, you know, Billy Bat, he was already this kid. He was sticking it, you know, he's sticking up for the handicapped step, you know, I don't know how you deal with how you describe that when they're foster kids. I don't know, step foster brother. I don't know. And so it's like, okay, he's already great. Everybody else in the DCU, like you said, even with Batman, even though he's not super powered, you're still just like, well, yeah, but he's angry about his parents. If I can get over it, have some therapy. But you never got that. We've talked about this ad nauseum on the show. It's a running gag about how we would just bring up the DCEU and it would derail everything, because we have fixed the DCEU's problems 100-fold over by just saying, keep Henry Cavill as Superman and just reboot the rest of it. Mm-hmm. Because you've fucked it all into a glorious like cluster that I'm not even sure is the Justice League Flash, is that still going on?
The Flash,
like I know Black Adam, is that still happening?
No, there's even more happening, because they just announced that they're going to do a Supergirl film, and Michael Keaton's going to show up in that as Batman.
I will tell you, if you were to ask me, well, I'm going to ask myself, then I'm going to ask all you motherfuckers. I don't know that there is a better comic book movie than Man of Steel. I struggle with that. I don't know what's better. I don't know what's better.
All right, so just really quick. When I was walking home, not home, but back to my hotel from the train, I shit you not, I was playing the music, Zod's theme. That I got nerd out. That dun 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 dun. Anyway, it's the fight music that he plays, where he's fighting with like Feora and Zod and everything. I mean, the Man of Steel film was just like musically and visually was like, I actually at the time in 2013, I think it was 2013, I said, this is my favorite comic book movie of all time. Now, I personally do think it's been surpassed. I do. But as far as the DC films, it is underrated, I think for sure. But actually, it's the shit. So, and I literally was saying that like within the last like 5 hours. So thank you, Andy, for saying that as well.
So I enjoyed Man of Steel. I didn't enjoy it as much as you did. I didn't enjoy it as much as Alex, you know, another guy from the show, does. Man of Steel is actually the only one of the major DCEU movies that I actually will say I enjoyed from the beginning to end. I thought it was like way too long for me, but I got the story they were trying to tell. Like I got where it was going, so I understood the length to that, and I saw, you know, then in subsequent movies oh, okay, this is why you're setting it up like this. This is why it crashes. I get it. But it's the only one that if you makes sense, if you will, like that. And I really enjoyed the first Wonder Woman. I think that is a very close second to me. Till the end, and it was a little rough with David Thewlis, but everything else has just been a bungled cluster for like that was the thing. Like I even went back and watch. You go back and watch now the Snyder cut, and I'm like, yes, it is better.
It's better than the original version. Yeah, it's still not.
It's still not a good movie. Like that was the problem. Like I watched it, and I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be better. Like I didn't like what he did with the little title cards in the middle of it. I was like, am I watching fucking Clerks? Like, well, did you take a page from Kevin Smith? Like,
no, the reason that they did that is because it was gonna air as
three separate pieces.
Yeah, 3 or 4 separate films on HBO Max when they dropped it.
It was.
all I know is as I'm watching Man of Steel, and in the thing that what made it work for me the most is when that truck driver walked out.
Henry Cavill's rippling muscles.
And he walked out to his truck, and there are all those logs fucked up in his bed. And it shows me that this Superman, who is not perfect, but is still not going to destroy him like he could, but is going to just destroy his way of life a little bit. I don't know. There's some. It's just good.
I think I just figured out what I think. Honestly, what my most major problem with the DCEU is right now, and its characterizations. You've got Superman, and I love the idea of with the way they have in the comics within the last 15, 20 years, exploring the idea of a Superman who is not a Boy Scout, who is struggling with this and that. I like that idea. The problem with doing that, though, is that you then have to have the other surrounding members of the Justice League or the other characters around him elevate and be the grounding force for that, because Superman has always been that paragon of right and wrong and what is good and what is not. And even if we're playing with these themes, you still have to have, and to do that with Batman, the way they did it just wasn't right. But Kevin hates Ben Affleck. I enjoyed Batfleck. I don't think people gave him a fair shake.
Oh, he's fucking horrible. Great. He's horrible. Anybody can be Batman. Anybody can be Batman.
I agree with you. It's all about who's Bruce Wayne.
It's funny you say that, though, because so basically what I liked about so when I watched the Snyder Cut, I struggled. I liked it, but I struggled. It was long. But then in the epilogue, that's when I was like, I was sad that it was over, because
that's the movie I wanted to see.
Yeah, I liked the Joker. He was good. And I love that one line where I can't say it verbatim, but he's like, when Batman's like to the Joker, like, when I kill you, and make no mistake, I will fucking kill you. Like, I just loved that, because it was just like he meant it, and the Joker's like laughing at him. Like, that was cool. And I just felt like between that and like Martian Manhunter, we were going somewhere. And then even the Flash, the way he is able to kind of reverse like time, that whole scene was sick too.
But everything they did with the Flash in that cut
made it so much better.
Problem. Yeah,
because that was like I think we talked about this when it came out, but that whole segment with the Russian family, it wasn't that that oddly enough wasn't the worst part of the original Justice League movie. That was just kind of like a goofy storyline to have him doing something. But then to take them out and flip it up and actually give him something tangible to do in saving the world, and the idea of then now you're setting up his ability to use this and the Speed Force, and now I'm like, okay, now I see where he was going with this, and this makes a little more sense to try and launch an entire universe from. The problem is they did it backwards the way Marvel did. Marvel took all sorts of little unknown pieces and put them together to build this beautiful universe. Whereas DC said, well, you know who all these fucking people are. We're just going to cram them into this fucking movie and hope that you like it, even though 90% of the viewing public out there has no idea who Darkseid is.
Yep.
None. Like no clue whatsoever. You got Marvel, who's kicking off, or you have Batman with the Joker and his entire rogues gallery that more people are familiar with, whether they realize it or not. You got, Superman is always fighting Lex Luthor, and that's what we all remember Superman fighting is Lex Luthor, except for the other Kryptonians that show up in the second Richard Donner film. And and in the comics, like you go to the comics, especially the classic, I don't want to say classic as in like golden age of comics, but aside, you go back 10, 15 years, Superman wasn't always fighting the most powerful people in the universe. God, DC just bungled this. And the saddest part about it is they had the 3 most marketable and bankable superheroes in the list, and they just fucked it up so bad.
Easily fucked it up. And not only did they fucked it up in a way that is undescribable, because they could have had all of us so easily and so simply.
I was rooting for them until 2016. I was Team DC.
I was with bated breath. I was watching, going, they're gonna do something cool here. Especially when I watched the footage at Comic-Con where they came out and they had Frank Miller reading a quote from Dark Knight Returns, and I was like, oh shit! Even if they don't do Dark Knight Returns, if they take this and they use that whole idea as a jump off point for a new DC universe, I was like, that's gonna be the shit. That'll be awesome. And then really all they did was just pull a couple of the themes and ideas from the graphic novel and use it in the fucking thing. Like Bruce Wayne, that again, not to pick on Batman versus Superman, because it's, everyone hates that fucking movie.
The ultimate cut I liked, though. I mean, I will go on record saying,
I don't think. Wait, is the ultimate cut? Because wait, there were 2.
The theatrical one doesn't make sense. Like there's parts where you're literally like, what is happening here? And that's what they released movies. Like,
okay, going on? So that's not the way. Okay, so but Justice League, there's the regular version and the Snyder version.
Correct.
But they released 2 different. Okay, so I've actually I did watch, just out of morbid curiosity, I had at first only seen like the director's cut or whatever they're calling it of Batman versus Superman. So it made sense to me.
Okay.
It was still horrible, but it all made sense.
Yeah.
I went back and watched the original theatrical release.
Oh God.
And I was like, why? How? Like, what?
Why?
Where? There was a meeting somewhere where they did test screenings and people sat around and said, this is the movie we're going to release.
Yes.
And nobody said
stupid.
No.
Yes.
Well, that's my argument against DC is the same issue that I take with the Star Wars sequels, is that nobody sat down and said, we have these things, we need to get from point A to point B, and we need to do all these things in the middle. Because none of those movies work well together. And if you look at the Star Wars sequels, like each one of those movies is fine. They may not be great or whatever, you might not love them all, but the movies themselves are well made, they're well acted, whatever, but they don't flow together.
No.
Right? And so and the DCEU suffers from the same thing. None of those movies really go together. So then when you take the movie and you put the characters together, you're like, cool, like, okay, but they're all garbage.
Now, do you think that, like, in my mind, I look at it like a trilogy. I do look at it as Superman's trilogy of Man of Steel, BVS, and the Snyder Cut. That to me is like the only like cohesive, because even like, oh my God, I just got chills again. What I liked about BVS was how, again, that music I was talking about, where you're seeing, Bruce Wayne driving through and everything's happening just like, the big climax from Man of Steel. And then the Snyder cut begins like from the end of BVS with like him getting killed by Doomsday. So I felt like I liked that organic weave, and I've probably been seeing that like fan edit of like where they legitimately took like they split screened it, and it was like on one side it was Batman vs Superman, and the other side was Man of Steel, and they actually synced everything together. It was like Zack Snyder really did everything time wise. So I mean, Kevin, I agree with you as far as like Aquaman and like all the others don't really go together, but I think that those three films do kind of form, a unit.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. They do, and it was just funny because I was just thinking about, Justice League right now, and even with the Snyder Cut adaptations, like, and as much as you can say about the Marvel movies, there is a little bit of, in some of them, some cheese factor, and they're all very predictable for the most part. There are some twists and turns that they take you on that are very fun that you don't see coming. But the weird whole like Kryptonian, the only way I can describe it is like the Kryptonian defibrillator move that they do with Clark when they dump him in the water and then the flash ring. It was just very much like
extra.
Yeah. I just felt like we're doing so much to get to this point.
Well, and the other thing that the only issue that you have there is that the end of Batman versus Superman, they bury him, right? But at the very end of that film, you see the rocks start to rise and stuff.
Yes.
So they've already indicated that he's not really dead.
Right.
So why do you have to resurrect him at all?
Well,
Like,
exactly. That was the thing. Like you look at the way they did that, and you're like, okay, I get that it's a very dramatic, wonderful story. That it's actually one of the only Superman comics that I've ever bought. The whole Death of Superman thing.
I have an autographed Siegel and Schuster 9.8 graded Death of Superman comic.
Oh, that's awesome.
It is.
That storyline should not have happened until like maybe 2024.
They rushed it.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're gonna kick off with.
Doomsday should not have been.
Yeah.
Like Doomsday should have been like
his own movie.
Like he should have been there.
Thanos. That should have been
when
Thanos.
It takes everybody to take down Doomsday, and then at the end of all that, it still takes your biggest hero giving up his life. Like that's the whole point of it. And instead, it was just like, it was like, "What's your mom's name is Martha, so is mine. Cool, I'm gonna die now."
That didn't bother me as much as it bothered a lot of people. I just thought it was it was just stupid. Like I was like, I was like, that doesn't even upset me. There's so many other things I have. Like Bruce Wayne, billionaire, all this technology, everything he's got going on with the he's spent millions of dollars to synthesize kryptonite. And he makes a fucking spear.
And he drives a Jeep.
I'm like
a base
one of the
that.
That was the thing, and that's why I had so much hope for it, because they had kind of Frank Miller involved a little bit, it seemed like. And so have you guys all read or at least watched the cartoons, the animated Dark Knight Returns?
I've seen the actual fight scene, and they definitely paid homage to the fight scene.
Like there's some stuff that they did, but one of the beautiful things that they do is, just with the society, Green Arrow has his arms been taken as part of this whole like superhero registration thing. So, Batman kind of like he gets Oliver to help him kind of take Superman down. And one of the things that he does is Arrow shoots at him with an arrow that explodes that's full of powdered kryptonite. So now Clark has breathed it in,
right?
And it's in it, and it's so like, and it weakens him from there. If you don't want to read the graphic novel, those two it's about, you're looking at, I think maybe 3 hours total. I think they're only 90 minutes apiece, but they are incredibly faithful adaptations to the comic, and it is easily the best Batman story ever written.
Cool.
I will tell you, the Robert Pattinson story that's about to be aired, I feel could be the best Batman ever shown on the screen, period. And
as long as he doesn't sparkle in the sunlight, I'm down.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, there definitely there's some things he has to climb over for sure, but I love the Christopher Nolan trilogy. Like, it is seriously one of the best things ever in cinema. I mean, it's just it's like when you ask what your favorite movie is, you have to just be like, well, we're gonna put this aside, right? We all agree that this is fantastic, right? I do feel like Christopher Nolan trilogy is just like something you have to just put aside and like, this is fantastic. But everything I've seen so far, Pattinson looks like he's gonna put that potentially to shame.
The director actually called Nolan, and you may have read this, and said, just so you know, we're trying to beat you. Like, this, just to be clear, like, we are trying to defeat your trilogy.
It. That's awesome. I loved the Christopher Nolan Batmans, even with the kind of cheeseball ending that they gave it with seeing each other over coffee. I thought that was very sweet at the end. I still think, though, and this is where Kevin will hate me again for my love of Batfleck, but I think so far on film, actually, even though it was a very, very small taste, the Batman from Justice League and Batman versus Superman, especially when he was dealing with street level criminals, is my favorite Batman yet.
Good.
That's
that
fine.
little scene.
I will point out that was not Ben Affleck. That was Batman, right? Like, it's true. Like, that could have been anybody in the suit. Like, Ben Affleck is a fucking terrible actor.
That is the Batman. Like, I want to see, and I guess I think part of it is because I think Batman has just been done to death now in so many ways. Like Christopher Nolan, like the Tim Burtons, and then the Joel, flying into the Joel Schumachers and everything else in it, that was its own little universe. And then Christopher Nolan created his whole universe. It's funny because if you go back, I just recently watched actually all three of them with the girls. If you go back and watch the first one,
it's different.
It's really actually way differently toned than the first two. Like, Christopher Nolan really reels you in with, like, in some ways, a very family friendly Batman kind of movie. Like, it's an actioner with Batman as a kind of thing, and then you get that second one, and it's like, it's dark right off the jump, and I was really happy with that. And I felt like, again, and part of it is just my love for that Batman, Dark Knight Returns storyline that they do, but I'm very much interested in the Batman where they were going with Ben Affleck at the age they have him, where he's a much older Batman. He's now, he's lost a Robin, he's lost Dick Grayson. We know the Joker did it. We don't know how. He's got a lot more demons behind him. Wayne Manor's destroyed. We don't know how exactly that happened. But we just know, like, they've set all this stuff up for these Batman movies, and I'm like, oh, I like the idea of exploring this slightly breaking down Batman coming to, like, the end of his thing. Like, it was really kind of, I was like, okay, this could be a cool kind of thing. And then they did fucking nothing with it.
Well, years ago, Andy, I know I sent you a message literally years ago about how I feel like they could have
carrier pigeon
100% tied those two universes together. It would have been very, very easy for them to put the Christopher Nolan universe tied directly into the Batfleck universe. And I agree.
It's easy. You just make Joey Gordon-Levitt Batman. Done.
Well, then you're not wrong there. But the way they did it, the destruction of Wayne Manor, it was like so simple. Like it was not hard to make Jordan Levitt being the Robin that died.
Yeah.
And then you could have had another whole 3 or 4 movies about that
era
that tied those two movies, those two friends. It's
that's
just
a
not
missed
hard.
Opportunity.
It is, and that's because they don't have a Kevin.
You're correct.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just so simple. DC does not have a Kevin.
They did, but his wife died.
Well,
yeah, but if you look at what he did, he never dealt with the other movies. He didn't have a hand in Wonder Woman. He didn't have a hand in.
You're right.
You're talking about Nolan?
No.
Donner.
Snyder. Snyder was supposed to be the guy bringing everything together.
No, Snyder, by the way,
it was hold on.
Snyder
it was his daughter.
It was his daughter.
See, now I feel bad about making the joke, and it was just his wife. It was like,
Snyder is not a Kevin. Snyder needs to be reeled in. Snyder's a visual guy. He's not a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the closest thing they had was actually Nolan. But I think that Nolan, I heard, I could be wrong. I heard Nolan pieced out after the Superman neck snap. I heard that he did not like that. But Snyder won, and he was able to snap the neck. It was odd. And Snyder and Nolan's like, okay, deuces. Like, I don't want to be part of this. Like, you guys, nope, take my name off the door. Yeah, but it's really sad. And I think that I think that what's his name probably wanted to. I think what's his name?
Joseph Gordon-Levitt?
No,
Heath Ledger or
no, he wanted to be the Feige. The guy who did Star Wars. Abrams.
Oh.
I believe Abrams wanted to lead. JJ wanted to be like the lead of the DC universe at Warner, and with the flyby and everything else. And I actually do think that Abrams has a certain bright optimism that could have worked, but I've just lost faith in Abrams. I feel like he's just a copycat with no originality, and his shit is very shopping mall corporate unoriginal. So fuck him now. Hope he's not watching. But
odds are pretty low.
He is. He's one of the 4 subscribers.
But
he DMs me all the time.
I'm preaching to the choir. If DC needs a Feige, and I hope they find him or her. That's that.
And with that, I think we go into New Year's with a whimper and not a bang.
Hell yeah.
There's a lot of cool stuff coming out in 2022. So much so that we spend an entire show on it. And Kevin has to sleep at some point.
Yeah, I actually do. I can only live off the blood of babies for so long. Gotta get to bed before the sun comes up.
Well, Pete and Kevin and Andrew, I gotta tell you, similar to when I listened to the JRE experience, I can't imagine that 3.5 hours have gone by so fast. It's absolutely incredible, and it's so strange. And when I listen to these podcasts 3 hours long, I always go, "Why? How can this happen?" But this is how this happens.
That's how it happens.
Yeah.
Because we've taken a much, I mean, not comparing us to the Joe Rogan experience, but we start off with a plan, and then it just derails so quickly, and we just kind of let it go where it goes, and it just kind of stream of conscious organically turns into how DC sucks. It's just
we end up there so often.
Yeah,
you're not untrue, but it's just so curious. It's so curious to me how this could happen, because I mean, I've listened to Howard Stern my entire life, and then JRE for the last year and a half, and it's just so weird to think that I've talked to you 3 gentlemen, which I clearly have not talked to you in this length of time in
ever
for
me.
Ever.
The way you've been going, I'm kind of scared that you haven't talked to any adults other than your girlfriend in the past couple weeks.
We don't do a lot of talking.
Hello.
Wow, chicka, wow.
Jim Halpert to the camera.
That is a different podcast for sure. But I gotta tell you, I am so thankful that I got the opportunity to talk to you guys. I hope this is not the last time, because this was we could go until Kevin's got to go to bed tomorrow. I really feel like in the conversation for sure. And it's weird because I feel like we've not even scratched the surface. Like we've like brushed against it before we decided we were going to scratch the surface and all these things, because there's so much more. We didn't even get to Star Trek. We didn't even get to Star Trek. We didn't even get the fucking Star Trek. Period. Like I had a whole conversation ready to talk about with the recent Star Trek stuff and how bullshit I think that is, dude. and that's like another.
The J.J. Abrams Star Treks, or like
Discovery?
the new series?
No, the series.
Yeah.
The current series. I actually enjoy it, but the first two episodes.
We're gonna call it a night.
Okay.
Because that's about to get real long.
Yeah.
because Drew is a huge Star Wars fan or Star Trek fan.
Star Trek fan, I am.
Yeah. Me too.
I enjoy a little bit the original films. I like the Next Generation films. I absolutely love the J.J. Abrams films. I understand why Star Trek fans don't. But again, we're gonna get that should be a whole special one episode, because there's a lot to talk about with those that we could just. Oh, yeah. That again, Kevin needs to sleep. So Andrew, thank you very much, both of you being on here. Drew and Andy, we'll have you guys on again. You were fun. I liked it. I hope you guys had a good time. Kevin, as always, it was beautiful. Just like every time we make love, it's phenomenal, marvelous.
That's awful.
You know what to do. Like, subscribe, do the whole thing. We're going to be a little more consistent next year.
Sure we are.
I hope. We'll see. Who knows what happens?
I'm in.
Life is like a box of... fuck it. Good night. Have a week.
All right.
Cheers.
Yeah.
So I was in Australia in December of 2019, like right as shit was getting hot and heavy. And I went to Australia with a girl, because that's what one does. And
Is this one of the ones you scrubbed from your Facebook page?
No, she's unfortunately still on my Facebook. No, actually, she's not on my Facebook page, but I'm leaving.
It's a good thing we're recording this.
That's good. Oh shit, that's right.
And now I know what's going at the, I know what's going at the end of the show.
Fix it in post.
Yeah.
We can edit that
for
part
a fee.
out, right?
For a fee. I mean,
edit out. This is getting cut off and put in. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Out.
It's going to be
the first part of the highlight reel.
Yes, exactly. We're on the same page, Kev.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to be careful going forward. I now I know this crowd. But I learned all about the koalas and how they're literally dying of horrible venereal diseases because of the crazy things they do to each other.
Yeah, they like the leaves they eat, the gum trees, the eucalyptus there, they basically get fucking stoned on them. So all they do is like hang around and get high on leaves and fuck all day. And so they just pass around gonorrhea like it's a fucking old folks home.
I thought you were joking.
No, dude, Andy's dead on. The koalas are dying en masse from gonorrhea.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not funny, dude.
And that's the title of the show.
It sounds like South Park, man. Are you serious?
No.
But it's legit.
Oh
they get after it. They get after it. It's weird. And if you mess with a koala, like you can give them some leaves and they'll get high, like you said. But if you're like messing with them and it's been like 5 minutes and they haven't had leaves, they get really angry. They basically have to be high all the time.
Have you ever heard the sound that a koala makes?
No.
Dude, it's one of the most awful things I've ever heard in my fucking life. Like, if you look at a koala, the sound they make they do not go together, dude. It is horrible.
Is it as bad as like the sound of like the turtle having sex? Have you heard that?
I've avoided that. Turtle porn isn't on my list of things to watch.
No, it's the weirdest noise ever.
It's like a click clack, like the shells or something.
No, I wish it's it's chlamydia, not gonorrhea.
Oh my god!
That risk of extinction.
Insane.
Look how happy he looks. You can't blame him.
And now, Deep Thoughts by Andy.
So it's just awesome. You know, I look at the four of us, right? So, you know, we all are from a particular area, right? Three of us have children. Andrew,
one of us is lucky.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Enjoy your freedom, buddy.
Child free, baby. No, no kids.
Don't fucking brag. But it's
okay
so
when
curious.
You're dying one day and I have my kids to take care of me and you don't.
Do you think your kids will take care of you?
No, I really don't.
Yeah, after they bled you dry and put you back at home.
We've actually already established in the house they're going to take care of my wife because I'm going to die first. They've all just accepted it.
You're lucky you're alive now. Nah,
you talk about these things.
It's so another show. Oh, I'm gonna go back all the way to the beginning right now. Another show that I'm watching has nothing to do with any of the shit we're talking about right now. Is 1883, which is the prequel to the
Yosemite,
Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you, I watched the 3 episodes that have been released, and they're amazing. I don't want to say life-changing because I feel like I know this already, but they're incredible properties. And what's so crazy to me, and I think I told this to you, Andy, or maybe you, Pete, or both of you, I don't remember. But that's 2 people away from where we are right now.
Yeah.
You know, my grandma 3 weeks ago would have been 100 years old. So she was born in 1921. Her parents were born in the 1800s, probably before 1883. So in my lifetime, 1883 is 2 people away from where I stand right now. 2 people. That's nothing. And I'm watching 1883, and we're talking like horse-drawn wagons. There's no, the West is still not won. Like, it is insane. And then the 5 of us, or pardon me, 4. I see 5 because I am on there twice. The 4 of us are on a video conference call in 4 different places. One of them on the East Coast, the rest of us are here on the West Coast for right now. And we're having a conversation about movies that have been made this year. If we were to take my great grandmother and just teleport her here, sitting next to me, and she would watch this, she would think this was magic. Yeah, it wouldn't make sense to her.
Hashtag somebody got high tonight.
I have a whole big bag of weed. I mean, clearly.
Oh shit!
but yeah, aside from the extra help in reviewing these things, but it's terrifying to think about. Like, I think about my daughter who's upstairs asleep right now, hopefully not still listening to me talk to you guys, but in 2 people from her, where I am the great grandparent, like, what is this going to be?
Oh, we'll be able to transfer consciousness to different bodies. They'll be living forever. We'll definitely be living on other planets, or at least like space planets. I mean, all that shit.
If the singularity
I would
doesn't
love to
hit
be
us
around
first.
For that shit
We'll
too.
have killed our planet. We'll be dead here.
I was gonna say the singularity is gonna have us done. My grandkids are gonna be slaves to our machine overlords.
Well,
that's that's okay.
Not if
that's
Elon
okay.
can help it. Elon is the great something hope. I don't know.
Elon's a lizard.
He wants us to be robots.
Yeah.
No, he wants us to merge with them.
He's already a robot. He just wants us to be like him.
It's gonna be one of those things. Either we'll be slaves to the robots, or they will be slaves to us,
or we'll be hybrids.
Well, I think for
take the blue pill. Take the blue pill.
That's actually very curious. That's the one thing that I thought of most when I was watching The Matrix, is thinking about 1883 and thinking about my kids and their kids as things progress on, is that there is going to be some sort of hybrid society at some point. There just has to be. There's no way around it. I mean, 100 years from now. I mean, so 1883, 1983.
Not to mention things advance exponentially. So even like 20 years ago to now, technology has skyrocketed. I mean, as far as telecommunications, we couldn't do this in 2020. I mean, 2000. No.
So a great example is actually, so tonight before this call, I went to my parents' house tonight. My dad has a 1993 Cadillac Alante. Not a special car, but a nice car. And he's trying to sell it. And tomorrow, some people are coming over to try and buy it.
How many miles?
71,000 miles.
What does he want for it?
$9,000.
It's not bad.
No,
for 93. If he's kept good care of it, it's Cadillac. It's an Alante.
Yeah. No, it's a good car. But I had to read the manual on how to take the top off and put it on and do all this shit to make the convertible be a convertible and all that shit like that right now. And I was thinking when I'm literally reading the manual and going, oh my God, why am I reading how to do this? When if I had a convertible right now, I push a button and it just all gets done. And that's a 93 car. That's not even that old. It's 30 years old, but it's not that old.
No, that's the problem, Andy, is that it is. No. This is the problem.
It doesn't feel like it to us.
We're in that age now where it doesn't seem that old to us because it's when we were in high school.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a fucking 30-year-old car.
Well, that's like they say now, if you look at from where we are to where we were born, if you go back the same amount of time, you're looking at before World War II.
Yeah.
So the span of time, is bullshit.
I gotta say really quick, for me, okay, and actually the three of us will actually remember this. 1993, the yearbook, it was like the 20-year anniversary of Cal High. So like there was all these pictures of 1973 to 1993. I was telling my dad this like last week, and I'm like, like 20 years ago, it was all black and white pictures, seeing the old teachers, some of them. I'm like, it was so long ago. You already know what I'm gonna say. Like, it's been longer between our high school days and now than that 1993, 1973 yearbook where I thought, holy shit, this is like the Stone Age. So yeah, we're old. We don't look old, I don't think, in my opinion. We're old.
Y2K was 22 years ago.
Yeah, man.
Like that was supposed to be end times.
Maybe it was. We just don't know it. Now we're in the Matrix.
Exactly, or some different dimension.
It's a multiverse.
Now there will be a blue pill and a red pill at some point, especially the way the society is going, frankly, where we'll either have to choose to opt in or opt out. And I'm not saying that tongue in cheek. I'm actually really feel that could be possibly very true. It's just interesting how things are. And you're right. I mean, we're closer to our past than we are to our future. And it's at our age, I look at my parents, and they're trying to figure out technology and they struggle with it. And I look at us, I'm like, I know this shit. But I look at my kids and they're like, they know this shit way better than me. Oh my God. And they look at me like a dinosaur, and I feel like I'm teaching them these. I'm not terrified, but if I were them, if I were our kids, Pete, Kevin, Andy, if you ever have kids someday, I mean, I would be terrified if I were my kids, to think about what is going to happen in the next 50 years. Because, we talk about, movie technology changing and strings and this and that, and that's great and all. But in 20 years, you don't even need actors. I mean, how will we need people to do those things that we can do in a computer? How far are we away from not really needing people besides voicing the characters on the screen? And frankly, how far away from not even needing a voice?
Well, damn.
It's a little scary.
Yeah, I'm gonna go kill myself.
For his next trick, Andy's going to light a trash can full of puppies on fire.
Oh, you have puppies? I have puppies. I will say, though, the only thing that gives me hope is baseball. Because to date,
I can't wait to hear this high shit.
We've had technology for the longest time to be able to call balls and strikes. We have. It's there. It exists. But we choose not to use it because we realize that baseball is a pure thing. And we want a person, an element in there to be able to be like, listen, you threw at his head, the next thing is not going to be a strike, you asshole. So my only hope is that we continue on that trend and we continue with the human part of our body, and that we don't make things that separate us completely from reality. And that I hope that we continue having umpires and we continue having things that make sense and have basis in real life. All right, that's enough. Maybe I had one too many edibles tonight. I'm not sure yet, but that's what I'm going with.
I don't even know where to go from here.
You motherfuckers just told me to stop a long time ago. God damn it.
No, it was an interesting. You can't even call it a rant. I'm not sure what that was.
That was just my
Journal.
concern on life. I if I get chipped, that's fine. But Jesus Christ, let me have my own choices. Please. When I become a robot someday, just let me choose my own fate.
Yeah, like they say, with great power comes great responsibility. See that? Tied it all back in.
Holy
brought us back around.
You should not be proud of that.
Kevin, I know. I mean, I'm just like, I'm an empath. So like, I know like it's like almost 3 a.m. over there. How are you doing?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, cool. That was easy.
Yeah.
Are you keeping that?
Oh God, yeah. Oh yeah. No,
good. Awesome. This actually might be a blockbuster. This could be the one that is like.
Do you, Pete? Do you want to make a really smooth transition to like the other good shit we've watched this year? Now that we've put Spider-Man to bed.
Yeah. So after Andy's
so he fucking dropped the mic and left.
Diatribe there. I think he went to the bathroom. That's why he didn't bring his phone. So we're just looking at his ceiling fan. Are you gonna, when you edit this for video, are you gonna leave his phone?
I don't really have a choice. I don't
cut like back and forth.
I don't have the magic. I don't have the magic skills to like remove something and move something around. So we're gonna have this weird layout, and it's his fault.